I'm the retired bishop with the Episcopal Church as the bishop for all chaplains in federal service. I read that there was a group of people that represented a sense of injustice that I had. We'd lost Zuccotti. I mean, there was a kind of a hope that maybe Trinity Church would be gracious and give refuge. We picked this day where we would gather and demonstrate that Trinity was closing its ears to what was happening. We marched around the block, and I realized that, my goodness, they're carrying a ladder. And I thought, well, this is the moment. You could feel a spiritual presence. You could feel a certain something. And then the cops came in. It got brutal.
I'm with you right here. Robin, I'm here.
The church needed, in this moment in history, to stand alongside of these protesters. The truth of Christ is found in the pews, is found in the institutional church, but it is also found in the streets. It's found in the honesty and the integrity, the insistence of people that you find in Occupy Wall Street.
My fellow Americans, good morning, good morning. It is Wednesday, April 2nd. Great to see you today, and welcome to the Bill Press Show. We got a lot going on here, coming to you live on Free Speech TV and, of course, on our video stream at youtube.com/TawkrTV. It was a huge celebration in the Rose Garden of the White House yesterday. I was there as President Obama announced to the world that despite all the problems with the website in the beginning, they ended up enrolling 7.1 million people in Obamacare by the March 31 deadline. Peter, that's a big deal. Or as Joe Biden would say, that's a big freaking deal.
That's a BFD. That is indeed a BFD. You were there, so we'll be able to talk all about that.
Yeah, and it was members of Congress were there. It reminded me of 4 years ago, almost to the day, a little, but maybe March 23rd, 2010, in the East Room of the White House. I was there when the president signed the bill. I was there yesterday when he said, okay, our first lap is, boom, 7.1 million. And he was defiant yesterday. It was a very upbeat crowd. It was like a pep rally. I mean, it was a huge celebration. I've never seen that kind of response to anything in the Rose Garden. The sound was just echoing off the walls of the White House where people were cheering so much.
They have a lot to celebrate over the past 4 years from putting it into law, and now they have a lot to celebrate.
So we'll talk about that. Also, the head of General Motors, Mary Barra, in front of the Congress yesterday, General Motors has a lot of egg on his face over this failure to start the recall earlier on those problems with the ignition switch. Really, really serious stuff.
Yeah. It's good that Congress is taking a look at it because it certainly got out of hand.
I mean, they knew about it like 10 years before they started recalling these vehicles. And also, Paul Ryan is out with his budget yesterday, and of course the main thing in his budget is he wants to repeal Obamacare. Get off that wagon. Man, I'll tell you, that dog don't hunt, as they say in South Carolina.
That's right.
All of that coming up right here on the Bill Press Show this morning. Stay with us.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Don't look at me. Your hair's a bit frizzy today. Oh, you should pick that up. Oh, you're such a dork. Loser. Here, let me help you with that. Oops.
Every day, kids witness bullying.
Oh, look. Your crush is looking at you. Poor you.
They want to help, but don't know how.
See, no one here's gonna help you, because no one
Teach your
likes
kids how to be more than a bystander. Visit stopbullying.gov.
If you drive buzzed, it could cost you around $10,000. You'll face major legal fees, major fines, and steep insurance penalties. You could lose everything. Nothing kills a buzz like getting pulled over for buzz driving, because buzz driving is drunk driving.
When some people struggle with their mortgage payments, they become frozen, petrified. Not knowing what to do, they do nothing. But the people who take action are far more likely to get the most positive outcome. Making home affordable is a free government program. Call now to talk one-on-one with a housing expert about the options that are right for you. Real help, real answers, right now.
Here at the GED Pep Talk Center, we have pep talkers standing by to get you motivated for your GED diploma. Text the name Terry to 69222 for a sympathetic pep talk.
You show people what you really are.
Or for a gentle pep talk, text the name Deborah.
You know you're going to make people very proud of you.
And if that's not enough, text the name Danny for an extreme pep talk.
Prove everyone wrong. Show them you're the boss.
Get your GED pep talk and find free GED classes. Text the name of the person you want a pep talk from to 69222.
At Earth Justice, we defend the environment in the courtroom. Join our fight. When you take a seat, you take a stand. Earth Justice, because the Earth needs a good lawyer.
A single ember that escapes from a wildfire can travel more than a mile. That single ember can ignite and destroy your home or even your community. You can't control where that ember will land, only what happens when it does. Get Fire Adapted now at fireadapted.org.
Hey, don't look now, but Washington, D.C. is going to have a new mayor. Good morning, everybody. What do you say? It is Wednesday, April 2nd, 2014. It's the Bill Press Show. Good morning, good morning. Great to see you this morning. We are coming to you live, of course, from our nation's capital. That's why it's a big deal, whoever the mayor of Washington, D.C. is. We're reaching out to you and joining you on your local progressive talk radio station. Wherever you happen to be, you're lucky if you've got one, whether it's Chicago or Ithaca, New York, or Asheville, North Carolina. Oh, go on and on and on all around the country. Palm Springs, California, the West Coast, East Coast, North and South. We are there with you, also there with you nationwide on Free Speech TV. If you got a satellite dish, DirecTV network, and if you are anywhere on the globe and want to join us with our video stream, go to TawkrTV, youtube.com/Tawker, TAWKRTV. Great to see you today, and thank you so much for being with us, starting your day with the Bill Press Show. And this is where you can also not just find out what's going on around the country, around the globe, here in Washington, D.C., but you can join the conversation. We invite you to do so by just giving us a call at 866-55-PRESS, or send us your comments on Twitter at BP Show, and on Facebook at facebook.com/BillPressShow. The team is here this morning. Peter Ogburn and Lisa Murphy. Good morning.
Hey.
Good morning.
What about it, huh?
Welcome.
Wednesday. Beautiful day
Wednesday.
yesterday. It was
glorious day.
Keeps
Absolutely.
getting better and better.
Gorgeous day in Washington, D.C. And Alicia Cruz is here. She's ready to take your phone calls. So, we pay her a lot of money, so make her work hard. Give us her.
That's right.
Make a lot of calls. Give us a lot of calls here this morning. She's laughing when I said we pay her a lot of money. Actually, she enjoys it so much, she pays us.
That's right.
To come in and
Come on.
because,
Just to talk to you.
Such a privilege. Yes, exactly. And are the cameras on this morning? I didn't even look.
They are on.
Oh, they are. Oh, okay.
They are on.
Are the cameras uncovered? Yeah, okay. Then Cyprian must be here. We got to be careful. You can. He'll turn off the lights and turn off the cameras.
That's the last person on the staff you want to piss off.
No, don't piss.
Like I'm more scared of pissing Cyprian off than. Oh, see, he's taking us off there.
There it is.
I'm more concerned with pissing him off than you.
It's happened before. We say something Cyprian doesn't like. He just puts his hand over the camera.
That's how it goes.
That's it. Yeah. Then we're off. Yes. Right. So I mentioned the race for mayor was not yesterday, but since Washington, D.C. is a 90% Democratic town, the Democratic primary usually decides who is going to be the next mayor. Incumbent Mayor Vincent Gray, beset by scandal, was trying for a second term. He was knocked out yesterday by City Councilwoman Muriel Bowser. It was Bowser declares victory is a headline in the Washington Post. There were, half a dozen members of the City Council. It was a crowded field, all running in the Democratic primary yesterday, but it really came down to a race between Vincent Gray and Muriel Bowser.
Yeah.
It was pretty clear that Vincent Gray is going to be indicted any day now for some campaign finance problems with his first run for re-election, for election rather. So people had enough of him. Wasn't a very colorful guy, a great leader, and certainly anyhow. And
I don't think he fit D.C. very well.
Didn't fit D.C.
Yeah.
No. She looks like she does.
Yeah.
I would have voted for her if I vote here. I still vote in California because, my vote counts in California. It doesn't count here in Washington, D.C. But at any rate, she was excited last night and vowed that now she's going to go out and walk this city, every single precinct, every block, and get the votes she needs to win in November.
We're going to set out across this town and launch a campaign across every ward and for every vote.
Good for her. Hope she makes it, and I think she'll be a great mayor of this city. And we've got a great lineup for you today. Congressman Chris Van Hollen, the ranking Democrat for the House Budget Committee, will be here in studio to talk about the Ryan budget. Yesterday, David Jackson will join us from the White House, from USA Today. And Chris Anders from the ACLU will take a look at this real battle, which gets every day a little more tense between the CIA and the Senate Intelligence Committee. And let me tell you about the big celebration in the Rose Garden yesterday. I was there. But first,
this is the Full Court Press.
Peter.
Just a couple of other stories making news. Bill, why do zebras have stripes?
Ask God.
That is a question that we've asked for a long, long time, and scientists have never really taken a look at why zebras have stripes. There have been
usually
a lot of
animal coloration has to do with survival.
That's
true.
If
they can hide, whatever in the foliage or something.
Several theories have been around for a long
stripes,
time.
I'm not
right?
sure.
So some people thought maybe camouflage, predator avoidance, heat management, social interaction. Those are all possible ways that they thought that they were coping. However, they now have a definitive answer. Nature magazine took a look and studied zebras over several years, and they've determined that the stripes on the zebra exist to confuse flies. The flies that hang around wildlife can carry very deadly diseases, and the stripes confuse these flies. They don't know where to land. They don't know what's part of the animal and what's not, and so that is why zebras have stripes.
I don't believe that for a second.
Just published yesterday.
I don't believe it for a second.
On April 1st.
Oh, April
I'm just saying. I think that it was published in a legit magazine. I'm just saying.
That's the biggest April Fool's joke I ever heard. Now, here's my point. How do stripes do with mosquitoes? I mean, people could, if that's true, right?
Yeah.
Maybe if you wear a striped shirt.
Oh, yeah. New camping attire.
Paint some stripes on.
Yeah, right.
There you go.
Confuse mosquitoes.
Welcome to Washington, Deshaun Jackson. Deshaun Jackson, wide receiver, who was cut from the Philadelphia Eagles late last week, made it official. He tweeted out last night, "It's going down, burgundy and gold." Tweeting out a picture of a SportsCenter report saying that Deshaun Jackson has agreed to a 3-year agreement to come and play for the Washington football team. So he is going to be here. Finally, Robert Griffin III has someone to throw to, a dynamic football player, a really, really game-changing player.
Yeah.
So we'll see how he does next season with the new coach, by the way.
If only they had a new name.
That's true. And the Library of Congress has added another 25 works to its National Recording Registry. It's a list of several tunes ranging from as far back as the 1890s of classic American recordings. The Everly Brothers, Kathy's Clown is one of them. U2's The Joshua Tree. Elmore James, classic blues singer, with his song Dust My Broom. And Isaac Hayes with the theme from Shaft. Made it onto the Library of Congress National Recording Registry.
You know, that's one thing you don't hear that much about the Smithsonian and the Library of Congress is their music collection is phenomenal.
Yeah.
The Smithsonian particularly they put out albums of American jazz, classic jazz piano. I mean, I have
a bluegrass one from a couple years ago. Amazing.
Yeah, right.
Amazing.
Negro spirituals, they've got great music collection, both.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Peter. Yes, indeed. Let me tell you, it was a glorious day yesterday in Washington, D.C., and particularly in the White House. And, you know, sometimes those events in the White House can be in the Rose Garden, can be a little chilly. Sometimes they can be too damn hot. Yesterday was a perfect day in the Rose Garden, and it was a huge, huge celebration. I was part of history yesterday, and I felt that standing there. Just as 4 years ago, March 23rd, 2010, I felt part of history in the East Room of the White House when the President signed the Affordable Care Act into law. Yesterday, I was part of history when the President announced the results of the first step in enrolling people in Obamacare. The scene, I have to just set the scene for a second. There were like 200, I'd say, chairs set up in the Rose Garden that were filled with White House staffers who've been working on this for this project, helping this project for the last 4 years. There were maybe 60 of us reporters who were there, tons of TV cameras and print reporters. And then even in back of the TV cameras, there was another maybe 100 staffers who were there who couldn't find seats. And in the very front row, and the excitement was in the air. People were just really built up because they knew it was a big deal and it was going to be a big announcement by the President. And in the front row was Secretary of HHS, Kathleen Sebelius. Next to her, the White House Chief of Staff, Dennis McDonough. Valerie Jarrett, the President's top advisor, was there. Jeffrey Zients, who's head of OMB now, was there. And then on the other side, Democratic leader Nancy Pelosi. Senate number 3 in the Senate, Dick Durbin, was there. Good friends of our show here, all. Dick Durbin, Nancy Pelosi, Rosa DeLauro, Congresswoman from Connecticut, Donna Edwards, Congresswoman from Maryland, Charlie Rangel, Congressman from New York. I felt like it was the Bill Press show in the front row, right? And everybody waiting, and then they announced, you know, and here comes the President, and the Vice President came out. Everybody gave him a standing ovation, and then the President made the big announcement that people were there waiting for, and you can hear how they responded.
Despite several lost weeks out of the gate because of problems with the website, 7.1 million Americans have now signed up for private insurance plans through these marketplaces. 7.1.
7.1 million people when they lost 2 months remember, because of the glitches in the website. October and November, gone. It wasn't until the end of November they had the website fixed and people could actually sign up. That's astounding. Think how high it might have been if they'd had those 2 months.
Right.
And maybe actually not that much higher because people do wait until the last minute. But at any rate, 7.1, it was incredible. And from that moment on, it was just pure celebration in the White House. And the president, he went after his critics. And he said, I don't get it. These people who've devoted like all of this energy to keeping people from getting health insurance for their families. Why? Why?
Why are folks working so hard for people not to have health insurance? Why are they so mad about the idea of folks having health insurance?
It just doesn't make any sense, particularly now. It doesn't make any sense since the program is in place and it is working. And the president talked about he read letters from some people who had signed up and were talking to him about how important this was for themselves and their families. And he said those people who really are opposing Obamacare and still want to repeal it, they got some explaining to do to these people.
Those who've based their entire political agenda on repealing it have to explain to the country why Jeannie should go back to being uninsured. They should explain why Sean and his family should go back to paying thousands and thousands of dollars more.
And then the president says something, I got to tell you, every once in a while I think he's got to be listening to the show because you've heard me say this. You have heard me say this so many times that Obamacare is here to stay. I think I coined that phrase, right? And the president, a defiant president yesterday, and the crowd went wild when he said this too. He said, man, come on, repeal? BS.
The debate over repealing this law is over. The Affordable Care Act is here to stay.
The Affordable Care Act is here to stay. That was a money shot for me yesterday.
Yeah.
I mean, he just said it. This is ridiculous. And by the way, at that very moment, we'll talk about this with Chris Van Hollen later, at that very moment on Capitol Hill, Paul Ryan was unveiling his budget, and his budget calls for the total repeal of Obamacare and replacing it with nothing. You know what? These guys talk about beating a dead horse. It ain't going to happen. This is the law of the land. You got Social Security, you got Medicare, you got Medicaid, and you have Obamacare.
And when you look at every month that goes by, right, it's harder and harder and harder to actually make the case for repealing Obamacare.
Especially now.
Yes. I mean, 7 million people have Obamacare.
So what are you going to do? Say, oh, we'll give you your money back and you got nothing.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
I mean, how are you going to do that?
Yeah.
It's been 4 years, 7 million people.
Yeah. No.
Put out whatever alternative you think you can put out.
Come up with a different line, Republicans, because you ain't going to repeal it. No. So, and then the funniest thing about the brief, I got to tell you this is, so I'm tweeting away, and I'm busy and I'm making notes and everything. And the president wanted to make the point. Now, it hasn't been perfect, and it won't be perfect going forward. There will still be some glitches. Things may still break down. And he wanted to warn the media, and so these things are going to happen. I just want you to know, the members of the media, it's going to happen. Listen to how he puts it. I thought he was pointing to me and talking right directly to me. It sounds like it. Here he goes.
I guarantee you there will be additional challenges to implementing this law. There will be days when the website stumbles.
All right, now
I guarantee it.
Here he goes.
So press. I want you to anticipate. There will be some moment when the website's down, and I know it'll be on all your front pages. It's going to happen. It won't be news.
No.
Press.
There will be parts of the law that will still need to be improved. And if we can stop refighting old political battles that keep us gridlocked, then we could actually even make the law work even better for everybody.
Bill.
Yeah,
and we're excited about the prospect of doing that.
It was just so funny because, again, my head was buried in my iPhone, I think, or something. When he said, so press it, I went, oh, Jesus, he's talking to me, and I jumped up. And the reporters that I was standing with, they thought so. They looked at me like, what's he doing there? Anyhow.
It's time we take a look at this bill. Press.
Anyhow, it was a great moment, and you know what? The reporters there that were there every day, and that's their job to ask tough questions and to be skeptical of everything going on, and the feeling among them yesterday was he deserves a victory lap. That this was really an achievement, and you got to recognize it as such a huge, huge success It was fun being there, part of it. So here's my question to you now. Is the president right? Do you agree that this is a huge success? No doubt about it. And a further question is, so will Republicans finally admit, right, that Obamacare is here to stay and start thinking about how to fix it, make it better rather than repealing it, which ain't going to happen, as we said? And more importantly, maybe, will Democrats finally get behind it? Will Democrats finally be proud, say, yeah, I voted for it, damn right I did, and I'm proud I did. And I'm not going to run away from it. 866-55-PRESS, let's talk about it. 7.1 million people. Are you one of them? Let's talk.
This is the Bill Press Show.
California, or the Golden State, has been in the midst of a 3-year drought, and this year, some scientists predict could be the driest in 500 years. Governor Jerry Brown declared a state of emergency in January and in February of this year. The world's 10th largest economy, California is also the United States' top agricultural producer. Half of all our fruits and vegetables come from California. The Golden State is not the only place on the planet struggling for this vital resource. In December 2013, the World Resources Institute found that 37 countries face severe water shortages. Free Speech TV would love to know what you think about this fight for water, especially if you're from the Golden State. Please call our comment line at 1-888-378-8855 or email us at comments@freespeech.org to let us know your thoughts.
A single ember that escapes from a wildfire can travel more than a mile. That single ember can ignite and destroy your home or even your community. You can't control where that ember will land, only what happens when it does. Get Fire Adapted now at fireadapted.org.
Columbine, Virginia Tech,
Tucson,
Aurora,
Fort Hood, Oak Creek,
Newtown.
Newtown,
Newtown.
Newtown.
How many more?
How many more? How many more colleges? How many more classrooms?
How many more movie theaters?
How many more houses of faith?
How many more shopping malls?
How many more street corners?
How many more?
How many more?
Enough.
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 Demand a plan.
Right now. As a mom.
As a dad. As a friend. As a husband.
As a wife.
As an American.
As an American.
As an American.
As a human being.
For the children of Sandy Hook.
Demand a plan. No more lists of names. It's not too soon.
It's too late.
Now is the time.
Before we all know someone who loved someone on that list.
No more lists.
No more.
Who they might have been. No more.
If we had just done something yesterday. It's time.
We can do better than this.
We can do better than this.
It's time.
It's time.
It's time for our leaders to act.
Demand a plan. Right now.
Right now.
You! Demand it!
Enough.
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 None of us would want to be told we can't marry the person we love. As Americans, we believe in freedom. That's what I fought for as a Marine, and that's what we believe in as Republicans. Freedom means freedom for everyone. I didn't used to understand the importance of same-sex marriage, but after learning my brother was gay, I wanted the same rights for him. He was the best man at my wedding, and I want to be the best man at his. It's only fair that Calvin should have the freedom to marry the person he loves, too.
It's time for marriage.
is the Bill Press Show.
27 minutes after the hour. 7.1 million signing up for the Affordable Care Act. Will Republicans finally admit it is here to stay? Peter.
We are on Twitter at BP Show, where Jim points out, first they called this his Waterloo, then a train wreck and a disaster. So far, the GOP hasn't gotten it right. It's called the Affordable Care Act, and it helps people. You can join the conversation on Twitter at
It's as simple
BP
as that.
Show.
Well, I have a question for you. What's the capital of Nevada?
Carson, Nevada?
Carson City.
Carson City? Is it
You're close.
Oh, man. Ooh, that was scary.
All right, and from Carson City, here's Rob. Hey, Rob, how you doing?
I'm doing fine, Bill. Good morning.
Good morning. What's up?
Well, I just wanted to say, well, of course, it was a success. It is the law. And I was watching Fox.
Yeah. Rob, well, I'll tell you what, just out of time here. It is a success. It is all. If you watch Fox, they're never going to say anything good about the Affordable Care Act. You know that when you tune in.
This is the Bill Press Show.
So this is my computer.
This is your computer. Let's go on the internet.
Let's go. Click it.
Yes.
Okay.
I cursor in between the R and the E. Pressing done. I want you to just push the area.
She's gonna love me all over again.
That's it. Jamaica, here you go.
Here we go.
Good job.
Thank you. Thank you. And I did it by myself. Feel smarter.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. You know, but it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, you know, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello, that's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
So, same time next week?
Well, of course. Put away a few bucks, feel like $1 million. For free tips to help you save, go to Feed the Pig.
All right. I know this isn't any fun to talk about, but we should. Okay. So who's going to do what?
I'll pack the dead batteries.
Great.
I'll only put what I don't need into a duffel bag.
Perfect. That's totally unhelpful.
No problem.
Meanwhile, I will try to comfort everyone by speaking in a calm voice.
And I'll try to get the generator going without any gas.
Oh, let's not forget the cell phones, which probably won't work.
Right.
And who is going to handle supplies?
I can forget to do a list for us.
Thanks, pal.
Well, I think we couldn't be any less prepared. I'm proud of you guys.
Talk to your kids about who to call, where to meet, what to pack. Visit ready.gov/kids for tips and information.
Hey, thanks for stopping by. You know, I followed your character since the first episode. I'm a big fan. Big fan.
Thank you.
And listen, your storyline, it makes for incredible TV drama. Thing is, your drug use is very adult content. Too adult for the kids. So I'm gonna have to block you.
Oh, man.
Yeah. Well, have a good one.
You're a nice lady.
California, or the Golden State, has been in the midst of a 3-year drought, and this year, some scientists predict could be the driest in 500 years. Governor Jerry Brown declared a state of emergency in January and in February of this year. The world's 10th largest economy, California is also the United States' top agricultural producer. Half of all our fruits and vegetables come from California. The Golden State is not the only place on the planet struggling for this vital resource. In December 2013, the World Resources Institute found that 37 countries face severe water shortages. Free Speech TV would love to know what you think about this fight for water, especially if you're from the Golden State. Please call our comment line at 1-888-378-8855 or email us at comments@freespeech.org to let us know your thoughts.
You know, the idea that we're talking, of course, about the big celebration, a well-earned and well-deserved celebration at the White House yesterday. President Obama gloriously announcing the 7.1 million people had enrolled in Obamacare. By the way, let's put that in context, too. That is on top of some in the neighborhood of 4 million people who signed up for extended Medicaid under Obamacare. So that that number would be even higher, except from some 18 states, governors, the Republican governors in red states have not accepted that expanded Medicaid. So if you add those up, you know, we're talking maybe in the neighborhood of 11, 12 million Americans who have health insurance today for the first time for themselves and their families, health insurance they could never afford before and could never have access to before. That, again, is a big deal. And the only thing that disappointed me yesterday at the ceremony, at the celebration, was that Vice President Biden, who was standing alongside the president, didn't just lean over to the microphone and say, "This is a big freaking deal," because everybody knew that's what he would say if he had a chance to say it. That's what he said 4 years ago when the president signed the law. And how ironic that the very day yesterday that we see how successful the Affordable Care Act is, despite all of its problems, that Paul Ryan comes out with his budget yesterday, which calls for the total repeal of Obamacare, replacing it with absolutely nothing. And Speaker John Boehner came out and said, quote, "House Republicans will continue to work to repeal this law and protect families and small businesses from its harmful consequences." You know, and I keep coming back to that question the president asked yesterday, which we played a little bit earlier. Why? Why are people putting so much political capital into trying to deny Americans health insurance? Right? You know, that I think they got some splaining to do.
Yeah.
On that point.
The point now is that we've come to insuring Americans has become such a political issue. Instead of saying we have a problem these people need to be insured, and let's figure out the best way to do it. That's not the conversation that we're having. Because if it was, in the last 4 years, the Republicans would have been engaging in a dialogue.
They would have put up a different plan.
How do we make this better?
We agree.
Here are our ideas.
We agree. Everybody should have insurance, but here's how we would do it.
Right.
They haven't done that. They just say, no. For 4 years. 4 years, we don't want this. We don't like this because it's Obama's plan. We don't like it. Offer nothing. No alternative. Kevin out in Chicago, Illinois, in the great WCPT. Hello, Kevin. Good morning.
Yeah, hey, good morning, Bill. Hey, you just you must have been reading my mind. That's the exact point I was going to make. The Medicare expansion, like myself, I got a kid that stayed on my insurance, and again, take the states out that didn't even participate, and you're probably over 12 million. But let me just put another point in there. The reason they hate it so much is very simple. Just like when Medicare rolled out, they always had problems with that, and it finally became something that try and take that away from the senior. You'll get your head bashed in, okay? This is the first step towards what we all want as progressives, which is the public option, Medicare for all. That's what this country finally needs to do for its citizenry. Medicare for all. The Republicans know that, if this just keeps going, that's where we're going to get, and they will become as irrelevant as a leaf on the ground on a fall day.
Kevin, well said, well said. And I think that's where I couldn't agree more. That's where we need to go. I think that is where we are going. And remember, Bernie Sanders put in this bill, and Dennis Kucinich had something to do with it too. There is a provision in the Affordable Care Act which allows states to experiment with total single payer medical form of Medicare. In other words, Medicare for all. And Vermont is going to be the first state to do that. So I think that's where we're heading. I think that's where we've got to head. And you're right, Republicans know it, and they're trying to stop it. But I think this train has already left the station. There is no way they're going to stop it now. Richard is out in Pocatello, Idaho. Hello, Richard. Good morning.
Good morning, Bill.
Yeah.
Hey, I think it is a success. However, I do think that the president and the surrogates need to be prepared for the onslaught of questions from Fox and from other places, like how many is paid and all that. They need to be prepared for that and have a good answer.
Well, I hope you're right, and I hope they will. It takes a while for all of that, obviously, to settle. There's still people signing up, right, Richard? And it's going to take a while before we get the demographic numbers. But I think, as I recall, the last time we heard that, like 25% of those who had signed up were relatively young people, let's say 35 or younger, And so those are all good questions, right? All good questions that we have to continue to ask. But at the same time, you can't take away from the main point, which is it's working. People see it. They want it. They're using it. They're benefiting from it. And I think that's here's what I would say, Richard. You touched the point of this is, and one of the reporters I was with yesterday turned to me and said that President Obama was making the very arguments in the Rose Garden yesterday that Democrats now have to go out on the campaign trail and make, right? Yeah. Look at this plan. Look at all these people who have signed up. Look at the benefits that they're getting. Look at the fact that they're able to get insurance today, which they could never buy before because they have a pre-existing condition, right? Look at the fact that their kids are on their health care plan until they're 26. Look at the fact that the insurance company can't drop you just because you happen to get sick and start needing a lot of pulling down a lot of money from your insurance plan. Or look at the fact that you're a woman and they can't charge you double just because you're a woman for your health insurance. You look at all these things, and then Republicans have to explain why they want to take all those good things away from people. I think Democrats have to turn this thing around. And instead of feeling they have to apologize for Obamacare, they have to put the Republicans on the defensive and make them explain how they can be against something that is doing so much good to so many people. Right? Yeah. Turn it around. Turn it around. That's what the president did yesterday in the Rose Garden. Out in Columbus, Ohio. Hello, Dave. Good morning.
Good morning. I was surprised and very pleased with the success of Obamacare. I was afraid that it wouldn't work, but it certainly is working, and thank God for that. I campaigned for him up in Chicago for 90 days. and I'm just very happy about what happened.
Well, you can join. You can join the celebration, Dave. You deserve to. Yeah.
Oh, thank you. I would like to join it. I've been very, very busy since I stopped the campaign. I had a lot of prejudice in my area after campaigning for him because there are a lot of racists here. But yes, I'd love to join it.
Well, you're part of it, and you helped to get him there, and so that's a time. And one of the, I think I mentioned this earlier, Jim Acosta from CNN, a good friend yesterday, he and I were waiting there for the president to come out, and he said, the way I see this thing, and I couldn't agree more, is that for the press corps in the White House, they've been asking questions, they've been skeptical, they've been cynical, they're reporting a lot on all the defects and everything that went wrong. But he said, you know what, today, our report today is we just got to say, big success. Obama had a big success today. Obamacare is working. That's got to be the message out there. And I think that's the way it has been reported. So we can all celebrate with the success of Obamacare. Now, Democrats, get some backbone and go out and defend it. David Jackson was there also yesterday, covering the White House for USA Today. He joins us next here on this special Wednesday, April 2nd edition of The Bill Press Show.
This is The Bill Press Show.
In 1920s America, the Great Depression effectively erased consumer demand. Struggling manufacturers needed new ways to get people buying again. Innovative production processes like stamping and use of molds allowed them to use new materials for their designs. Products using vinyl, chrome, aluminium and plywood began appearing. American industrial designers began introducing streamlined, efficient shapes that shouted progress. Bel Geddes pioneered what we now refer to as utilitarian art. Things that had little reason to look sleek now all of a sudden did. At the 1939 World Fair featuring Bel Geddes' immensely popular Futurama exhibit, a new era of American industrial design proudly claimed to be building the world of tomorrow. Americans found great positivity in these futuristic forms. Yay. Things were looking up. American industrial designers realized that by making objects look great, people simply wanted them more. From cars to kitchen appliances, the most influential society on earth was spending money again. Mass consumption had arrived. Advertisers finally had lots to talk about. Personal taste could be expressed through the things you bought. Style became equally as important as function. Chair designers like Eames and Saarinen didn't just design seating, they created desirable lifestyles. People behind the product suddenly were stars. Everyone wanted to know who they were. Raymond Loewy was one of the shining lights of American industrial design. His face ended up on every coffee table in the nation. Toothpaste packaging promised whiter teeth. Washing powder packaging promised whiter whites. Who knew such simple household objects would shape the tastes and ambitions of an entire society? American industrial design improved America, functionally, culturally and intellectually, and exported it around the globe.
If you drive buzzed, it could cost you around $10,000. You'll face major legal fees, major fines, and steep insurance penalties. You could lose everything. Nothing kills a buzz like getting pulled over for buzz driving, because buzz driving is drunk driving.
When some people struggle with their mortgage payments, they become frozen, petrified. Not knowing what to do, they do nothing. But the people who take action are far more likely to get the most positive outcome. Making home affordable is a free government program. Call now to talk one-on-one with a housing expert about the options that are right for you. Real help, real answers, right now.
Seen on Free Speech TV and online on TawkrTV. This is The Bill Press Show.
13 minutes before the top of the hour, Wednesday morning, April 2nd. It was a big day at the White House yesterday, particularly on the south side of the White House. President Obama welcoming the Boston Red Sox World Series champs, and then welcoming a whole big gang of White House staffers with a huge celebration to mark 7.1 million people signing up for Obamacare. David Jackson was there for USA Today, joining us on our news line this morning. David, that was quite a celebration in the Rose Garden yesterday.
Oh, both of them. In the middle of the Red Sox celebration, the White House staff decided to call a little briefing on the health care numbers that were coming out later. So it was a very, very busy day as well as an interesting one.
And the president had a good day, certainly, right?
For sure. They got over the 7 million mark in terms of health roll signs. It was a declare victory day for the president, and he was able to say, he said this before, but he was a little more definitive this time, is that the health care law is here to stay, and the Republicans are foolish to try to repeal it.
By the way, did you, now honestly, right, did you ever think they'd get anywhere close to 7 million?
I really thought they did, Bill. I assume people lowball these things when they make these projections.
Yeah.
So I had a feeling they would creep over. Now, I'm sure that number's going to be, it's already being contested by some people, especially in terms of how many people have actually paid their premiums, how many people were previously uninsured. But I always had a feeling that if they wouldn't get 7 million, they'd get pretty close to it.
I haven't seen a scene like that in the Rose Garden. I mean, it was like a big pep rally.
Well, the Red Sox they're different for sure. Yeah. They had an amazing season 2 years ago. They just had an utterly disastrous season. They had to get rid of their manager. They brought in some new players last year, and then they went all the way and won the World Series. So it's a good, inspiring. It's a story presidents can relate to. I think you're down 1 year, but the next year you can always pop back up.
Not exactly.
It gives the Nationals hope, huh?
Exactly.
Here at home.
Hey, I'm looking forward to seeing the Nationals in the Rose Garden next year. I'm very optimistic.
Fingers crossed.
All right. Yeah. Well, Friday is our first home game, and we all know that's a federal holiday because everybody will be everybody will be at the Nats Park.
Now the question is, will President Obama be there to throw out the first? Actually, they've already announced who's going to throw out the first pitch. So I guess President Obama won't. I'm not sure he's going to do an opening pitch this year because obviously time is running out.
Yeah. He did one 3 years ago, maybe.
Yeah, he's done it at the Nationals Park. He did one, I think, in Chicago, and he also did one at the All-Star Game 1 year. So he's done them, but it doesn't look like it's in the cards this year.
I don't want to make too much of this, but it was very telling to me yesterday that the president, talking about the Obamacare and the 7.1 million, he thanked Nancy Pelosi, he thanked Dick Durbin, he thanked other members of Congress who were there, he thanked all the staffers who had worked so hard on this. He never mentioned the woman who was sitting right in front of him, Kathleen Sebelius.
I'm sure Chuck Todd of NBC noted that too, because as you know, he and Jay Carney went round and round on how much support the administration has given for Kathleen Sebelius. I was struck by that too, because I've always heard that Sebelius' job was safe, and I still think it's safe. But it was interesting that he didn't praise her yesterday during the speech. I'm not sure what that's about.
President's on the road today, David. What's he doing?
Well, it's after he's had the foreign affairs trip last year where that soaked up all of his time. He's going back to domestic issues this week, and today it's minimum wage. He's going to the University of Michigan in Ann Arbor to talk about his proposal to increase the minimum wage from $7.25 an hour to $10.10 an hour. And one of the interesting things about this gig, Bill, is that he's going to be with a Senate candidate, Gary Peters, the congressman from Michigan, who's running for the Senate. He will be on the stage with President Obama. I believe this is the first time a high-profile Senate candidate has been seen with the president on the trail.
That is interesting. A question I have is, why wouldn't the president? Now, the minimum wage issue is extremely important. The president's been on it for a long time, right?
Right.
But it seems to me that yesterday was such a big deal with the Affordable Care Act that they're getting off that today. They're getting off message, right? Why wouldn't he be doing more of a victory lap on the Affordable Care Act?
Well, I guess it's been 2 days. They talked about it Monday and Tuesday, and I think they felt like they had good days. And they also feel like the minimum wage is an important issue too. Now, I'm sure the president will talk about health care at the University of Michigan, but I think they feel, particularly in Michigan, which has a big governor's race and a big Senate race, that the minimum wage is more of a resident issue.
I just sometimes have the feeling that they jump from issue to issue, too often, rather than getting a good focus and staying on it.
Well, I think that's good too, and they also have just a very a very unusual relationship with the health care issue. I mean, you got some people in the White House who say Democrats should campaign on it; it'll be a winner in the long run. Others are saying, well, you know, they have a very equivocal relationship, I think, with the health care issue, particularly when it comes to the campaigns this year.
Now, David, you've got a story out I saw this morning about he's back, right? Dick Cheney.
He's back.
He never goes away, right?
He's back, and our friend David Corn with Mother Jones is back. Someone gave him another secret tape, and they printed the results of it, which in this case was a Cheney speech to a group of Republican donors, the Republican Jewish Coalition, I think it's called, and he said some pretty pungent things, as he is wont to do.
This was the meeting out in Las Vegas, hosted by Sheldon Adelson, who's really the founder of this Republican Jewish Coalition, where Chris Christie came and Scott Walker and John Kasich. And we heard about all of those because those were public, but behind closed doors it was Dick Cheney.
Exactly, and he ripped Obama on Middle East. He basically said that the Arabs get along with each other better than they do with the United States, which is an extraordinary situation. And he also seemed to endorse the idea of an Israeli strike on Iranian nuclear facilities, which I don't think is a real big surprise to anybody, but it's interesting to hear Cheney talk about it.
What's interesting is the difference of how they've conducted themselves between George W. Bush and Dick Cheney, after they left the White House. Right?
Very much so.
You never hear from Bush.
No, and I don't think Bush would be too crazy about some of the things Cheney was talking about. You know, even toward the end, Cheney was always much more aggressive. Even when things kind of went south in Iraq, Cheney was still much more aggressive. I think he supported the idea of a military strike on Iran during the Bush administration, but no one else did. So Cheney's very much a no apologies guy.
Yeah, no, absolutely. All right. Well, it was a fun day yesterday at the White House, David. Glad to share it with you, and thanks for your time again this morning. Always good to talk to you. Thanks, David. David Jackson, USA Today, usatoday.com.
This is the Bill Press Show.
California, or the Golden State, has been in the midst of a 3-year drought, and this year, some scientists predict could be the driest in 500 years. Governor Jerry Brown declared a state of emergency in January and in February of this year. The world's 10th largest economy, California is also the United States' top agricultural producer. Half of all our fruits and vegetables come from California. The Golden State is not the only place on the planet struggling for this vital resource. In December 2013, the World Resources Institute found that 37 countries face severe water shortages. Free Speech TV would love to know what you think about this fight for water, especially if you're from the Golden State. Please call our comment line at 1-888-378-8855 or email us at comments@freespeech.org. to let us know your thoughts.
If you drive buzzed, it could cost you around $10,000. You'll face major legal fees, major fines, and steep insurance penalties. You could lose everything. Nothing kills a buzz like getting pulled over for buzz driving, because buzz driving is drunk driving.
When some people struggle with their mortgage payments, they become frozen, petrified. Not knowing what to do, they do nothing. But the people who take action are far more likely to get the most positive outcome. Making home affordable is a free government program. Call now to talk one-on-one with a housing expert about the options that are right for you. Real help, real answers, right now.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. You know, but it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, you know, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello? That's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
At Earth Justice, we defend the environment in the courtroom. Join our fight. When you take a seat, you take a stand. Earth Justice, because the Earth needs a good lawyer.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Top of the next hour, Chris Anders from the ACLU will be here in studio to talk about the escalating war between the CIA and the Senate Intelligence Committee, led by Senator Dianne Feinstein. Peter?
How would you like some good news?
I'd like some. I'm ready.
Let's go to Afghanistan and Iraq. March is now over. We're into April, and March 2014 is the first month that no American casualties died in either Afghanistan or Iraq in 11 years.
No kidding.
11
really?
years. 133 straight months. At least one member of the U.S. service was killed in either Afghanistan or Iraq. March 2014, not one.
Definitely good news, and hopefully there won't be any more American casualties in either Iraq or Afghanistan, which doesn't mean there's not still a lot of violence in those countries. We'll talk CIA next with Chris Anders from the ACLU.
This is the Bill Press Show.
If you drive buzzed, it could cost you around $10,000. You'll face major legal fees, major fines, and steep insurance penalties. You could lose everything. Nothing kills a buzz like getting pulled over for buzz driving, because buzz driving is drunk driving.
When some people struggle with their mortgage payments, they become frozen, petrified. Not knowing what to do, they do nothing. But the people who take action are far more likely to get the most positive outcome. Making home affordable is a free government program. Call now to talk one-on-one with a housing expert about the options that are right for you. Real help, real answers, right now.
My fellow Americans, good morning, good morning. It is Wednesday, April 2nd. Great to see you today, and welcome to the Bill Press Show. We got a lot going on here, coming to you live on Free Speech TV and, of course, on our video stream at youtube.com/TawkrTV. It was a huge celebration in the Rose Garden of the White House yesterday. I was there as President Obama announced to the world that despite all the problems with the website in the beginning, they ended up enrolling 7.1 million people in Obamacare by the March 31 deadline. Peter, that's a big deal. Or as Joe Biden would say, that's a big freaking deal.
That's a BFD. That is indeed a BFD. You were there, so we'll be able to talk all about that.
Yeah, and it was members of Congress were there. It reminded me of 4 years ago, almost to the day, a little, but maybe March 23rd, 2010, in the East Room of the White House. I was there when the president signed the bill. I was there yesterday when he said, okay, our first lap is, boom, 7.1 million. And he was defiant yesterday. It was a very upbeat crowd. It was like a pep rally. I mean, it was a huge celebration. I've never seen that kind of response to anything in the Rose Garden. The sound was just echoing off the walls of the White House, where people were cheering so much.
They have a lot to celebrate over the past 4 years from putting it into law, and now they have a lot to celebrate.
So we'll talk about that. Also, the head of General Motors, Mary Barra, in front of the Congress yesterday. General Motors has a lot of egg on his face over this failure to start the recall earlier on those problems with the ignition switch. Really, really serious stuff.
Yeah, it's good that Congress is taking a look at it, because it certainly got out of hand.
I mean, they knew about it like 10 years before they started recalling these vehicles. And also, Paul Ryan is out with his budget yesterday, and of course the main thing in his budget is he wants to repeal Obamacare. Get off that wagon. Man, I'll tell you, that dog don't hunt, as they say in South Carolina.
That's right.
All of that coming up right here on the Bill Press Show this morning. Stay with us.
This is the Bill Press Show.
A single ember that escapes from a wildfire can travel more than a mile. That single ember can ignite and destroy your home or even your community. You can't control where that ember will land, only what happens when it does. Get Fire Adapted now at fireadapted.org.
Columbine, Virginia Tech,
Tucson,
Aurora,
Fort Hood, Oak Creek,
Newtown.
Newtown,
Newtown.
Newtown.
How many more?
How many more? How many more colleges? How many more classrooms?
How many more movie theaters?
How many more houses of faith?
How many more shopping malls?
How many more street corners?
How many more?
How many more?
Enough.
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 Demand a plan.
Right now. As a mom.
As a dad. As a friend. As a husband.
As a wife.
As an American.
As an American.
As an American.
As a human being.
For the children of Sandy Hook.
Demand a plan. No more lists of names. It's not too soon.
It's too late.
Now is the time.
Before we all know someone who loved someone on that list.
No more lists.
No more.
Who they might have been. No more.
If we had just done something yesterday. It's time.
We can do better than this.
We can do better than this.
It's time.
It's time.
It's time for our leaders to act.
Demand a plan. Right now.
Right now.
You! Demand it!
Enough.
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 None of us would want to be told we can't marry the person we love. As Americans, we believe in freedom. That's what I fought for as a Marine, and that's what we believe in as Republicans. Freedom means freedom for everyone. I didn't used to understand the importance of same-sex marriage, but after learning my brother was gay, I wanted the same rights for him. He was the best man at my wedding, and I want to be the best man at his. It's only fair that Calvin should have the freedom to marry the person he loves, too.
It's time for marriage.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. You know, but it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, you know, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello? That's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
$7.1 million people. They not only met their goal, they surpassed their goal with the Affordable Care Act. Big celebration in the Rose Garden yesterday. Good morning, everybody. Wednesday, April 2nd. Good to see you today. Thank you for joining us. It is the Bill Press Show, coming to you live from our nation's capital and booming out to you all across this great land of ours on your local progressive talk radio station and on Free Speech TV. Coming to you worldwide on our video stream at youtube.com/TawkrTV. A busy day today in our nation's capital. President Obama celebrating 7.1 million people signing up for the Affordable Care Act in the Rose Garden yesterday, on the very day that Paul Ryan, Congressman Paul Ryan released his budget, the Republican House budget, which calls for repealing Obamacare. $7.1 million in the Rose Garden, repeal on Capitol Hill. That's how wide apart the forces are here in Washington. But clearly the American people are getting more and more behind the Affordable Care Act. A big battle going on here in Washington, D.C. between the CIA and the Senate Intelligence Committee, and the head of GM yesterday apologizing to the United States Congress for GM's failure to begin the recall of those cars that are suffering experiencing problems with their ignition, resulting, I think it was, end up in 23 deaths. Congress demanding some action on the part of GM. The point is, there's just a lot of talk about this morning, so let's get right to it. We look forward to your calls at 866-55-PRESS. Chris Anders, Legislative Counsel, Senior Legislative Counsel for the ACLU, is in studio with us again this morning. Chris, good to have you back.
Hi, good morning.
Thank you for coming in, neighbor and friend of the program. Joining our team here, Peter Ogburn and Lisa Murphy. Hello, guys.
Hey, good morning.
With Alicia Cruz there, standing by to take your calls, and Cyprian Bolding, who's got the cameras up, the lights up, and we thank our good videographer, Cyprian. Right. So yesterday, Chris, it was a big day down at the White House. I was there in the Rose Garden when the president made the big announcement for $7.1 million. I missed the earlier celebration on the South Lawn when he welcomed the Boston Red Sox to
a much more important one.
Yeah, right. Much more important. The world champion Boston Red Sox. The president loves welcoming. I've seen so many teams that he doesn't matter. Ice hockey team. He'd welcome. He has T-ball teams to the South Lawn in the White House. He just loves it.
And he always crushes these events. He does such a good job. You know, because he's like a genuine sports fan, as opposed to other presidents in the past who have to sort of fake it.
And he knows these guys. Yeah. He knows their stats, particularly I've seen with the basketball teams. I mean, oh, my God, right? He can teach them a few tricks, and probably has. Yesterday, the president, however, was almost upstaged at the Reds by welcoming the Red Sox by Big Papi.
Big Papi.
Oh, he wants to do a selfie.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
It's the Big Papi selfie. Come on.
Did you see it? It looks pretty good. Yeah. Big Papi put it up there. Is that the president's first selfie since the South African trip? Remember that one?
Yeah, he'd rather not talk about that one. He'd rather not talk about that selfie. Yeah, I think this is the first one that he's done since then.
Yeah. It's pretty cool. Do that with the President of the United States.
I mean, if you're going to do it, go big or go home.
Yeah, exactly. So are you going to be at the Nats game Friday?
I wish I was, but no.
Oh.
By the way, they're selling standing room only tickets for that game now.
That's great.
Is that right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Who are they playing?
The Braves.
Braves.
Which is a big game.
That is a big game, yeah. How'd they do yesterday? They won the first game, I know.
Yeah, I don't know.
I don't think they played.
I don't think they played yesterday.
I didn't play.
Off.
I got it. Okay. Anyhow, we get right into what's happening between the CIA and the Senate Intelligence Committee with Chris Anders here at the top of the hour. Congressman Chris Van Hollen, the ranking Democrat, top Democrat on the House Budget Committee, will be along at the half hour to talk about the Ryan budget, joined by reporters from National Journal and The Hill in the next hour. But first,
this is the biggest stories of the day.
Yes, indeed. Just a couple of other stories making news. Washington, D.C. will have a new mayor. Incumbent Vincent Gray was defeated in the Democratic primary last night by Muriel Bowser. She will go on to face David Catania in the general election. Since the 1970s, the Democratic challenger has always won, so I think we can expect to see Muriel Bowser as the next mayor of Washington, D.C.
With the city of like 90% Democratic registration, I think it is. Yeah. She's got a good shot at it. Let's put it that way.
Megan Pinion of Baton Rouge, Louisiana, got more than she bargained for when she went into a Starbucks. She ordered a caramel latte, 2 caramel lattes, one for her and one for her husband, and they were delivered with the barista had written 666 in caramel syrup on top of the latte and a pentagram on top of the other.
No.
She is a Catholic woman. She is a school teacher. She is not okay with that. She took to Facebook to show Starbucks the photos, and no word yet on what happened to the barista.
He may be looking for a new job.
May be out of a job, yes indeed. And Times Square has a new advertiser right up next to ads for Broadway plays and Coca-Cola. The New York Daily News reports that Weedmaps.com has a new ad in Times Square advocating for the legalization of marijuana in New York.
Whoa.
Times Square advertisement. It says, Hi, New York. H-I-G-H, Hi, New York. Weedmaps is essentially Yelp for pot users, right? So you can review dispensaries and strains of marijuana that you've tried. And while it's not legal in New York, it still operates there. Believe it or not, people still smoke weed even though it's illegal. But that's the new big ad in Times Square. They're pushing for legalization of marijuana.
You know, years and years and years ago, I don't think I ever saw it, but I saw certainly pictures. There was this big Camel cigarettes, and there was a guy smoking and
blowing smoke.
So maybe they should do that.
That would be great.
That would be great.
Yeah, revive that old ad. I love it.
Yeah.
There you go.
How about it? So, Chris, this story first came to my attention about the CIA in the Washington Post over the weekend. The headline: CIA misled on interrogation program. Not that they were misled, but they did the misleading.
That's right.
According to a Senate Intelligence Committee report. What's this report? Who's it by? What does it tell us?
So Senator Feinstein is the chairman of the Senate Intelligence Committee, started this investigation of the CIA and its role in the use of torture. She started this 5 years ago, so this is a 5-year-long investigation. They looked at 6 million pages of CIA documents, wrote a 6,000-page report. My favorite part of the whole thing is there are 15,000 footnotes in their report.
Whoa.
So this is a massive report. It's everything anyone's ever wanted to know about the CIA torture program. A lot of these facts apparently are new facts. It's going to show that the torture program is much more broadly used, or is much more broadly used than anyone thought, that the tactics that were being used are much more severe, that even with the severe tactics that they were being used over longer periods of time and in combination with each other. The whole conclusion, I think, from the people that I know who have read it is
so it's not a public report yet.
It's not a public report.
How did the Post get a copy? It was leaked to them?
I don't actually. It doesn't sound like they got a copy. It sounds like people were giving them information out of the report.
Out of the report, yeah.
It's been very tightly held, but from people who have read it, they've said this is a horrific report. It really will let people know, exactly what happened at the CIA, and this story of the CIA lying even to the Bush White House, even to the Bush Justice Department, and of course to Congress about what they were doing is one piece of the puzzle, but it's an important piece because it means that they misled everybody who was involved in this.
And this means that they were among the people they were lying to. They were lying to the Senate Intelligence Committee. And lying to Senator Feinstein, who has been one of their chief backers.
Well, look,
correct?
They did this 10 years ago. They were lying to Congress about what they were doing in the Senate Intelligence Committee. It's supposed to have oversight over them. And then what of course we found out last month was that in the most recent round, after this first draft of this report was sent over to the CIA in December of last year, that the CIA then turned around and actually spied on the computers that were being used by the Senate Intelligence Committee. So this is a agency that's done an awful lot to cover up what it's done.
And that prompted the big speech by Senator Feinstein
That's
on
right.
the Senate floor.
That's right. That's right. She said that it looks to her like the CIA has violated separation of powers in the Constitution, violated the Fourth Amendment, violated a federal computer statute, and violated a law that prohibits the CIA from spying on people here at home.
What does the report say about how much intelligence we gathered from? Because Cheney and Bush said this is necessary, these enhanced interrogation techniques, to get the information we need to bust up terrorist plots.
What they've said is that there was no useful intelligence that came out of the torture program. None. Zero. And that's something that it's in the Washington Post report this week. But last year, Senator Feinstein joined together with Senator Levin, the chairman of the Armed Services Committee, Senator McCain, who at that time was the ranking Republican on the Senate Armed Services Committee, to all put together a joint statement saying that they've looked at this, that there was no useful intelligence that came out of this entire program. But what the CIA was
despite
telling,
what Dick Cheney says, right?
Despite what Dick Cheney said, and what they were doing though was the CIA was telling everybody that they were getting useful intelligence, and it sounds like from this Washington Post report, what they were doing is they were taking intelligence that was coming from FBI agents using standard interrogation tactics, that intelligence that had come before the torture program was being used, and then they were claiming that as the result of torture.
Yeah.
So it was a sleight of hand, and what it really also goes to these lies is whether they can claim any protection. Well, the CIA agents and the CIA itself can claim any protection from these legal memos that the Justice Department wrote as a way to provide some legal protection against criminal prosecutions. All those legal memos are undermined if they're all based on basically a lie from the CIA about what worked and what didn't.
Will this report be made public?
Well, that's the big question. So on Thursday, tomorrow at 2:30, the Senate Intelligence Committee meets. If you're from a state where your members of the Senate are on the Intelligence Committee, particularly Maine, where both your senators are on the Intelligence Committee, definitely take the time today to call them and say, vote to release this report. This is a report that all Americans should see. It's going to be a very close vote. Senator Feinstein wants the report, a big chunk of the report at least, to be declassified and released. And so what will happen tomorrow is the committee will vote on declassification and release. Then they take the report, either late Thursday or Friday. The report will be physically picked up by the White House and the administration, and then the White House will start to look at declassifying it and see if there's any information in the report that should remain hidden.
So the committee itself can't just put it out?
Well, there's actually a procedure, but it's a pretty lengthy procedure they've never used before. So the step they're going to take is to give it to the administration. Now, here's the key thing, right? And the key decision for the president is what he did last year when this draft report was done is they turned the whole thing over to the CIA, the agency that committed all the lies and the torture.
Yeah.
And they said, well, what do you think? Can you review this report and tell the Intelligence Committee what
Fox
you think of it?
in charge of the hen house.
That's right. And now the director of the CIA, John Brennan, has publicly said last week, well, give it to us again, and we promise we'll do the review expeditiously, right? Basically, give it to us again so we can hold the blackout pen to decide what gets redacted or not. Now, it's going to be up to President Obama and to the White House as to whether they let the CIA do this again. And now you would have to think, how stupid could somebody be to do that again? But the CIA's expectation is that they're going to be able to get the report again, the report about all their lies and all their torture, and be able to black out what they don't want people to see. So that's going to be President Obama's decision. It's going to be a decision he's going to have to make this week.
Were these CIA agents who were lying and torturing and then lying about it, were they committing war crimes?
Well, I mean, torture is against the law. It's a crime. It's a crime in a variety of different contexts. If it's in a war situation, it can end up being a war crime, but it's also a violation of regular federal criminal laws. Unbelievably, no one from the CIA has ever been prosecuted for anything related to this.
Right.
So I think
Could they be? Still.
Well, Well, the statute of limitations are basically for people that ended up dead. There's no statute of limitations, and then for conduct that could foreseeably have resulted in someone's death, there also is no statute of limitations. And we believe that the CIA program resulted in at least 5 detainees being killed during the torture program. So there certainly is at least a potential of criminal liability. And one of the disturbing points of the whole thing is we've never been sure whether there's ever been a federal criminal prosecutor or the FBI or any other criminal investigatory agency has ever really been able to look at all the facts, all the players without any restraints and decide, were crimes committed or not. And it might be at the end of the day that they'll decide that a prosecutor could look at and decide, look, we don't have the evidence, crimes were committed, but, there are lots of decisions that prosecutors make to not prosecute. They could do that, but we don't have any assurance that that kind of full look at all the facts, all the players, everything that took place has ever happened.
There it is. The CIA. They were not only conducting and practicing the torture. It was worse than we thought, and they were lying about it to us, to the Senate, to the White House, to everybody, even to the FBI. It looks like. What should be done about it? Chris Andrews is here from the ACLU. Give us a call at 866-55-PRESS.
This is the Bill Press Show.
California, or the Golden State, has been in the midst of a 3-year drought, and this year, some scientists predict could be the driest in 500 years. Governor Jerry Brown declared a state of emergency in January and in February of this year. The world's 10th largest economy, California is also the United States' top agricultural producer. Half of all our fruits and vegetables come from California. The Golden State is not the only place on the planet struggling for this vital resource. In December 2013, the World Resources Institute found that 37 countries face severe water shortages. Free Speech TV would love to know what you think about this fight for water, especially if you're from the Golden State. Please call our comment line at 1-888-378-8855 or email us at comments@freespeech.org to let us know your thoughts.
A single ember that escapes from a wildfire can travel more than a mile. That single ember can ignite and destroy your home or even your community. You can't control where that ember will land, only what happens when it does. Get Fire Adapted now at fireadapted.org.
Columbine, Virginia Tech,
Tucson,
Aurora,
Fort Hood, Oak Creek,
Newtown.
Newtown,
Newtown.
Newtown.
How many more? How many more? How many more colleges? How many more classrooms?
How many more movie theaters?
How many more houses of faith?
How many more shopping malls?
How many more street corners?
How many more?
How many more?
Enough.
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 Demand a plan.
Right now. As a mom.
As a dad. As a friend. As a husband.
As a wife.
As an American.
As an American.
As an American.
As a human being.
For the children of Sandy Hook.
Demand a plan. No more lists of names. It's not too soon.
It's too late.
Now is the time.
Before we all know someone who loved someone on that list.
No more lists.
No more.
Who they might have been. No more.
If we had just done something yesterday. It's time.
We can do better than this.
We can do better than this.
It's time.
It's time.
It's time for our leaders to act.
Demand a plan. Right now.
Right now.
You! Demand it!
Enough.
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 None of us would want to be told we can't marry the person we love. As Americans, we believe in freedom. That's what I fought for as a Marine, and that's what we believe in as Republicans. Freedom means freedom for everyone. I didn't used to understand the importance of same-sex marriage, but after learning my brother was gay, I wanted the same rights for him. He was the best man at my wedding, and I want to be the best man at his. It's only fair that Calvin should have the freedom to marry the person he loves, too.
It's time for marriage.
This is the Bill Press Show.
So we got this situation here in Washington, D.C. with it's the CIA versus the Senate Intelligence Committee. Chairman Senator Dianne Feinstein versus the CIA Director John Brennan, and the CIA and the FBI are battling it out too. What does the ACLU think ought to happen here? What do you want to happen?
So here's what should happen.
Got a minute.
As much of the report as possible should be voted on to be declassified and released by Senator Feinstein and her committee tomorrow.
Amen.
Thursday afternoon. And then that report, when it goes over to the White House, the president has to make a decision that this is a report that is too important to just turn over to the CIA and let them take their blackout pen and block out whatever they don't want the American public to see. They can't hide their torture and their lies anymore. The White House itself has to take charge of that process. Now, if they need to consult with somebody at the CIA here or there to make sure that information that shouldn't come out really doesn't.
The White House run the show.
Otherwise, the White House should run the show.
All right, and then I think we ought to go back and prosecute some of these people at the CIA for war crimes, but that's another story. We can talk about that another time. The ACLU, ACLU.org. I'm a member. You ought to be a member, too. Chris Andrews, thanks for coming.
All right, thank you.
All right, great to see you.
This is the Bill Press Show.
This is my computer.
This is your computer. Let's go on the internet.
Let's go. Click it.
Yes.
Okay.
I cursor in between the R and the E. Racing dot, I want you to just push the period.
She's gonna love me all over again.
That's it. Jamaica, here you go.
Here we go.
Good job.
Thank you. Thank you. And I did it by myself. Feel smarter.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. You know, but it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, you know, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello? That's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
So, same time next week?
Well, of course. Put away a few bucks, feel like $1 million. For free tips to help you save, go to Feed the Pig.
All right. I know this isn't any fun to talk about, but we should. Okay. So who's going to do what?
I'll pack the dead batteries.
Great.
I'll only put what I don't need into a duffel bag.
Perfect. That's totally unhelpful.
No problem.
Meanwhile, I will try to comfort everyone by speaking in a calm voice.
And I'll try to get the generator going without any gas.
Oh, let's not forget the cell phones, which probably won't work.
Right.
And who is going to handle supplies?
I can forget to do a list for us.
Thanks, pal.
Well, I think we couldn't be any less prepared. I'm proud of you guys.
Talk to your kids about who to call, where to meet, what to pack. Visit ready.gov/kids for tips and information.
Hey, thanks for stopping by. You know, I followed your character since the first episode. I'm a big fan. Big fan.
Thank you.
And listen, your storyline, it makes for incredible TV drama. Thing is, your drug use is very adult content. Too adult for the kids. So I'm gonna have to block you.
Oh, man.
Yeah. Well, have a good one.
You're a nice lady.
Connect with The Bill Press Show on Twitter. Follow us at BP Show and tweet using the hashtag WatchingBP. This is The Bill Press Show.
Wednesday morning, April 2nd, 33 minutes after the hour. The Bill Press Show coming to you live all across this great country of ours on your local progressive talk radio station and on Free Speech TV. Interesting kind of combination of events yesterday here in our nation's capital. At one end of Pennsylvania Avenue, I was there in the Rose Garden yesterday when President Obama announced that 7.1 million Americans had signed up, despite the problems with the website, had signed up for Obamacare, not only meeting but surpassing the goal that was set by the Congressional Budget Office. Here on this end of Pennsylvania Avenue at the United States Capitol, Congressman Paul Ryan, on behalf of House Republicans, unveiling the Republican budget, which would repeal Obamacare and replace it with nothing. Congressman Chris Van Hollen is the ranking Democrat on the House Budget Committee. Congressman, do these people live on the same planet? I mean, Republicans really think they're going to repeal Obamacare?
Well, as you know, Bill, they've tried 52 times now in the House of Representatives to repeal the Affordable Care Act, strip Americans of the important protections that are provided by the Affordable Care Act. But let me just make one distinction here because it's important. What Ryan and the Republicans do in this budget is they repeal all the benefits in the Affordable Care Act. So they repeal the tax credits that help people purchase insurance in the exchange. They repeal the provisions that allow young people to stay on their parents' insurance policy. They repeal all the good stuff, but they keep all the revenues from the Affordable Care Act, every penny. And they keep all the Medicare savings in the Affordable Care Act. And no one should let them get away with the claim that their budget balances in 10 years because it only reaches its claim of balance because it includes the savings and revenues from the Affordable Care Act, which at the same time they say they're repealing in the same budget. They can't have it both ways. It's a total fraud. And whenever they say that their budget reaches balance in 10 years, people should blow the whistle and say, wait a minute, are you repealing the Affordable Care Act or not? Because your budget only balances because you've kept the revenue. You've gotten rid of all the benefits for people, right? But you've kept the way we paid for the Affordable Care Act.
So what do we see or what do we learn from this Ryan budget yesterday?
Well, I've now seen 3 Republican budgets. They've all been reckless, but this has been the worst for the country. And I say that because it doubles down on this Tea Party idea, the Republican idea, that we're going to further rig the rules for the very wealthy, for entrenched special interests at the expense of everybody else. And if you start looking through this budget, it undercuts anybody's claim to looking at America as a land of opportunity for all, because it strips out all the steps that we try and put in place so people can climb the ladder. Early education through K through 12 education, $140 billion cut. You and I have spoken. We need to be investing more in our kids' early education, right?
The most important investment we could make.
This begins to strip away that investment, $145 billion cut. And then on top of that, they make it much more expensive for kids to go to college, right? another $140 billion, stripping out the one part of the Pell Grant that's guaranteed, charging students interest now during college, taking away a provision that helps students not get in too much debt. So whether it's early education, K through 12, or college, these guys are taking down the ladders of opportunity at a time when we need to be putting up ladders of opportunity. And it really does cloud the American dream. And it is a very pessimistic view of the country.
And does it go anywhere?
Well, it's not going anywhere in the Senate. And that means that some people are tempted to sort of dismiss its importance. And I would argue that people should take this very seriously, not because it's going to pass this year, but because this tells the country what the Republicans would do if they had the power to do it, right? If they could run Washington, if they ran the government, this is the budget that they would deliver, a budget that would be great for the Koch brothers. It's great if you're a special interest. It's great if you're a multimillionaire. But if you're a middle-class family, it'll mean, on average, a $2,000 tax increase if you got kids to finance a drop in the tax rate for multimillionaires.
For the wealthiest Americans.
If you're struggling to get your kids, educated, sorry, it's actually going to make life a lot harder for you. And then it goes back and strips away important food and nutrition programs. We had that big debate in the Congress over what was at that time an extreme Republican proposal to cut $40 billion in food and nutrition programs. In the end, it was $7 billion. What does this budget call for? Over $125 billion cut to food and nutrition programs for struggling families. So, look, it's detached from reality, but this is the reality Republicans want to impose on the country.
So, in other words, people can see that if Republicans were to control the House and were to get control of the Senate and to win back the White House, this is what
they would do. So wake up, America. Don't let your eyes glaze over. Take a look at this. We want every American to read this budget from front to back. Because budgets are about priorities, and this is what Republicans would do to America if they had the power to do it.
This is what their wish list would be.
Yeah.
Now, I want to come back to the other event, the Affordable Care Act, where I was there yesterday in the Rose Garden. What does this 7.1 million people signing up tell you about Obamacare? I mean, the president, hey, Lisa, we have the what I call the money shot from the president yesterday when he was pretty defiant here.
The debate over repealing this law is over. The Affordable Care Act is here to stay.
Well, that's right. And look, despite the rocky rollout, we exceeded the targets, right? And what that shows is how hungry the country was for Affordable Care Act. It just showed that there were millions of Americans who couldn't get affordable care, whether it was because they had a pre-existing condition, and so the insurance company said, get out of here. We're not going to insure you, or, we're going to charge you so much you can't possibly afford it. And all the other provisions of the Affordable Care Act are now, I think, coming into play and helping provide that economic security. I want to mention something about the Ryan budget because we talked about how he repeals the benefits. One of the benefits he repeals is the effort we made to close the prescription drug donut hole, right? So the Affordable Care Act makes it easier for seniors with high prescription drug costs. This will make those prices skyrocket for them.
You mean the Ryan budget does again?
Yes, over the 10-year period, if you're a senior with high prescription drug costs, $12,000 more over that 10-year period, about $1,200 per year in additional costs for seniors. And that's just one example. He also takes away the provision that allows for people to get preventive care services without having to pay copays, because we want to encourage more seniors to catch their problems early.
One of the most important parts, I believe, of the Affordable Care Act.
Exactly. So, in every area, if you're, in the middle class, if you're a senior, if you're a student, this is a punch in the stomach. If you're a multimillionaire, cheers to you under this. You're doing great.
Well, how are Democrats able to get the word out then? I would agree with you. It's so important I mean, budget documents are hard. Most people wouldn't know where to start reading them, right?
Right, exactly.
But so how do you get the word out about, look, this is it. Take it seriously because this is what they really want to do, right? And here's the damage it would do.
Well, that's right. Look, you've got to translate, all these numbers into real-world impacts. And let's just take education. Right now, we don't have enough slots for kids in Head Start. So this would strip away thousands or more,
even more
slots in Head Start. Right now, we have schools around the country that are struggling to make sure they have enough teachers in the classroom. This will make it much harder for them to finance that. In fact, you'll see loss of teachers in classrooms. And when it comes to college education, we've all seen tuition rising, and yet this will make it much harder for kids to go to college unless you're, born to a very well-off family. So, it's difficult to take our Republican colleagues, talking about how, they want to expand opportunity in America when they're stripping away the ladder of opportunity.
What does the Ryan budget do about jobs, if anything?
Well, I'm glad you raised that. I mean, this will
after
hurt
we
jobs.
Were told by
right.
John Boehner,
right.
you put us in charge of the Congress, and we were going jobs.
Exactly. So what he meant was jobs down the drain, because what this Republican budget will do, it's going to hurt the economy. It's going to hurt job growth. And I say that because it dramatically cuts important investments in economic growth, including in infrastructure. So just this year, in the year for fiscal year 2015, which is right around the corner, it cuts the transportation budget by over $50 billion. So you're going to see an end to new starts in construction. That means people in construction jobs are going to be laid off if they're working on federal highways. And you combine that with the cuts to our investments in science and research, places like NIH, and you're going to see our economic competitors like the Chinese and Western Europeans eating our lunch in the global economy. So it's a recipe for economic decline. It takes the investments that we make in areas that help power our economy far below the lowest levels as a share of the economy since the 1950s, right? Think of the lowest share of the economy invested in that area. Cut it by 40%. That's where it is. I mean, this is really reckless levels. This is if this is a budget that no powerful, strong country could have and sustain itself as a big economic power.
So good news at one end of Pennsylvania Avenue yesterday, good news at the White House, bad news in the Congress with a Ryan budget. Congressman Chris Van Hollen, ranking Democrat on the House Budget Committee, welcomes your calls, your comments here at 866-55-PRESS. We'll continue in just a minute here with the Bill Press Show, this Wednesday morning edition.
This is the Bill Press Show.
In 1920s America, the Great Depression effectively erased consumer demand. Struggling manufacturers needed new ways to get people buying again. Innovative production processes like stamping and use of molds allowed them to use new materials for their designs. Products using vinyl, chrome, aluminium and plywood began appearing. American industrial designers began introducing streamlined, efficient shapes that shouted progress. Bel Geddes pioneered what we now refer to as utilitarian art. Things that had little reason to look sleek now all of a sudden did. At the 1939 World Fair featuring Bel Geddes' immensely popular Futurama exhibit, a new era of American industrial design proudly claimed to be building the world of tomorrow. Americans found great positivity in these futuristic forms. Yay. Things were looking up. American industrial designers realised that by making objects look great, people simply wanted them more. From cars to kitchen appliances, the most influential society on earth was spending money again. Mass consumption had arrived. Advertisers finally had lots to talk about. Personal taste could be expressed through the things you bought. Style became equally as important as function. Chair designers like Eames and Saarinen didn't just design seating, they created desirable lifestyles. People behind the product suddenly were stars. Everyone wanted to know who they were. Raymond Loewy was one of the shining lights of American industrial design. His face ended up on every coffee table in the nation. Toothpaste packaging promised whiter teeth. Washing powder packaging promised whiter whites. Who knew such simple household objects would shape the tastes and ambitions of an entire society? American industrial design improved America, functionally, culturally and intellectually, and exported it around the globe.
California, or the Golden State, has been in the midst of a 3-year drought, and this year, some scientists predict could be the driest in 500 years. Governor Jerry Brown declared a state of emergency in January and in February of this year. The world's 10th largest economy, California is also the United States' top agricultural producer. Half of all our fruits and vegetables come from California. The Golden State is not the only place on the planet struggling for this vital resource. In December 2013, the World Resources Institute found that 37 countries face severe water shortages. Free Speech TV would love to know what you think about this fight for water, especially if you're from the Golden State. Please call our comment line at 1-888-378-8855 or email us at comments@freespeech.org to let us know your thoughts.
On your radio, on TV, and online. This is The Bill Press Show.
Here we go, 11 minutes before the top of the hour. Reporters from the National Journal and The Hill joining us in the next hour right now on a very important topic of the Ryan budget. This is the Republican blueprint for running this country, put forth by Congressman Paul Ryan, chair of the House Budget Committee yesterday in the House. The ranking Democrat on that committee, Congressman Chris Van Hollen, joining us in studio this morning. Particularly good of you to come in today, Congressman. Thank you, because you actually go to work on this budget today, correct?
That's right. In the Budget Committee, House Budget Committee, we'll begin what we call our markup, our voting sessions.
Basically debating this plank by plank, correct?
Plank by plank, offering amendments to change it, because we think this needs radical surgery. And then by probably 9, 10 o'clock tonight, you'll have a final vote.
And do Democrats have any hopes or plans to try to make this a better document, or just
Well, we certainly do. We have lots of amendments to try to improve it in many different ways. So, for example, we think it's important to restore some of the cuts we're talking about to education, and we pay for those by closing some special interest tax breaks, including breaks that actually perversely encourage companies to ship American jobs overseas, right? I mean, they have a budget that provides for a tax scheme that encourages loss of American jobs. We say, let's bring those American jobs back. Let's invest in jobs here at home. You remember when Mitt Romney during the campaign said he didn't care about the 47%?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Well, this budget sets out to prove Mitt Romney's statement. It just is a real attack on struggling families. It's an attack on middle-income families. And I say that because it will increase the tax burden on middle-income families to provide cuts to tax rates for those at the top. And it will eliminate important safety nets for so many other people. And some of the Republicans have this false and pernicious idea that people who are in poverty and are trying to lift themselves out of poverty are simply sort of lazing back in the hammocks when you provide food and nutrition programs.
Yeah.
And now the
Paul Ryan has basically said that.
Right. And so here's their definition of a jobs program. Get rid of the safety net, because their argument is it is the safety net, is food and nutrition programs that are lulling people into this dependency. And so we, the Tea Party Republicans, are going to do them a favor. We're going to get rid of food stamp program. We're going to cut the school lunch program for kids.
Or unemployment benefits.
Or unemployment benefit. And by God, that somehow is going to miraculously create more jobs and people are going to go to work, instead of what we know, which is that it's not a lack of motivation. It's a lack of economic opportunity. And so while they eliminate the supports that help people survive while they're in poverty as they try and lift themselves up, they then are dismantling the ladder of opportunity by cutting education, including Head Start, that helps people climb out of poverty. So you hit people coming and going, right? You take away the ladder of opportunity that helps people climb out of poverty, and while they're struggling in poverty, you take away basic food nutrition programs, all while you're providing tax breaks to the very wealthy. And so that's not what America's about, and that's why we want everybody to look at this budget.
Yeah, look at this budget. If people want to look at the budget, they can go online. Peter, you're going to post that out?
I just tweeted it out. If you're following us at BP Show, I just tweeted it out, and it's gory detail. So go check it out.
Yeah. And follow Congressman Chris Van Hollen here, who will tell you the truth about the Ryan budget, and will be there leading the fight today against it and to try to make it, to get rid of some of the most, the worst parts of it, although tough getting any Republicans to vote for those.
Let me just really mention one thing we want to do is if you adopt immigration reform, it has a huge benefit to the economy and reduces the deficit. So one example of an amendment we will offer today is comprehensive immigration reform. So we're going to actually give our Republican colleagues an opportunity today in the Budget Committee to vote for comprehensive immigration reform. It's good for the economy. It's good for the budget. It reduces the deficit.
Congressman, so good you're there leading the fight. Thanks so much for coming in this morning, Congressman Chris Van Hollen. We'll be right back. Tell you what the President's up to today.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Tune into Free Speech TV for Democracy Now!, a national, independent, award-winning news program bringing you people and perspectives rarely seen on corporate media.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. You know, but it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, you know, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello, that's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
At Earth Justice, we defend the environment in the courtroom. Join our fight. When you take a seat, you take a stand. Earth Justice, because the Earth needs a good lawyer.
If you drive buzzed, it could cost you around $10,000. You'll face major legal fees, major fines, and steep insurance penalties. You could lose everything. Nothing kills a buzz like getting pulled over for buzz driving, because buzz driving is drunk driving.
When some people struggle with their mortgage payments, they become frozen, petrified. Not knowing what to do, they do nothing. But the people who take action are far more likely to get the most positive outcome. Making home affordable is a free government program. Call now to talk one-on-one with a housing expert about the options that are right for you. Real help, real answers, right now.
This is the Bill Press Show.
In the next hour, reporters for the National Journal and for The Hill in studio with us. And the president today back on the road. He's going out to Ann Arbor, Michigan. We'll be talking about the minimum wage at the University of Michigan in Ann Arbor. You know he'll be talking about Obamacare as well, talking about the success, remarkable success of the 7.1 million people who signed up. And then the president goes off to Chicago, where he has two events tonight, two fundraisers for the Democratic National Committee. One big event at the Chicago Cut Steakhouse, and then a smaller event at a private residence in Chicago. And surprisingly, the president is not going to spend the night in Chicago.
Really?
I guess nobody made the beds in the old home. Instead, he'll be flying back to the White House tonight. Too bad he doesn't get to spend the night in the Windy City. You know?
This
Home, sweet
is
home.
the Bill Press Show.
In 1920s America, the Great Depression effectively erased consumer demand. Struggling manufacturers needed new ways to get people buying again. Innovative production processes like stamping and use of molds allowed them to use new materials for their designs. Products using vinyl, chrome, aluminium and plywood began appearing. American industrial designers began introducing streamlined, efficient shapes that shouted progress. Bel Geddes pioneered what we now refer to as utilitarian art. Things that had little reason to look sleek, now all of a sudden did. At the 1939 World Fair, featuring Bel Geddes' immensely popular Futurama exhibit, a new era of American industrial design proudly claimed to be building the world of tomorrow. Americans found great positivity in these futuristic forms. Yay. Things were looking up. American industrial designers realised that by making objects look great, people simply wanted them more. From cars to kitchen appliances, the most influential society on earth was spending money again. Mass consumption had arrived. Advertisers finally had lots to talk about. Personal taste could be expressed through the things you bought. Style became equally as important as function. Chair designers like Eames and Saarinen didn't just design seating, they created desirable lifestyles. People behind the products suddenly were stars. Everyone wanted to know who they were. Raymond Loewy was one of the shining lights of American industrial design. His face ended up on every coffee table in the nation. Toothpaste packaging promised whiter teeth. Washing powder packaging promised whiter whites. Who knew such simple household objects would shape the tastes and ambitions of an entire society? American industrial design improved America, functionally, culturally and intellectually, and exported it around the globe.
So this is my computer?
This is your computer. Let's go on the internet.
Let's go. Click it.
Yes.
Okay.
I cursor in between the R and the E. Racing dog.
She's gonna love me all over again.
That's it. Jamaica, here you go.
Here we go.
Good job.
Thank you. Thank you. And I did it by myself. Feel smarter.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. You know, but it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, you know, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello, that's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
So, same time next week?
Well, of course. Put away a few bucks, feel like $1 million. For free tips to help you save, go to Feed the Pig.
All right. I know this isn't any fun to talk about, but we should. Okay. So who's going to do what?
I'll pack the dead batteries.
Great.
I'll only put what I don't need into a duffel bag.
Perfect. That's totally unhelpful.
No problem.
Meanwhile, I will try to comfort everyone by speaking in a calm voice.
And I'll try to get the generator going without any gas.
Oh, let's not forget the cell phones, which probably won't work.
Right.
And who is going to handle supplies?
I can forget to do a list for us.
Thanks, pal.
Well, I think we couldn't be any less prepared. I'm proud of you guys.
Talk to your kids about who to call, where to meet, what to pack. Visit ready.gov/kids for tips and information.
Hey, thanks for stopping by. You know, I followed your character since the first episode. I'm a big fan. Big fan.
Thank you.
And listen, your storyline, it makes for incredible TV drama. Thing is, your drug use is very adult content. Too adult for the kids. So I'm gonna have to block you.
Oh, man.
Yeah. Well, have a good one.
You're a nice lady.
And online, this is the Bill Press Show.
A big celebration at the White House yesterday. Well-deserved. 7.1 million people signing up for Obamacare. Good morning. Great to see you this morning. It's Wednesday, April 2nd. It is the Bill Press Show, and we are coming to you live from our nation's capital and our studio on Capitol Hill, just down the street from the Capitol building, where while the president was announcing how many people had signed up with Obamacare at the Capitol, Paul Ryan was introducing his budget to repeal Obamacare. Republicans still think they're going to do that. I think I know it's not going to happen, and certainly less likely after yesterday. We're just getting started here on the news of the day. Whether it's happening here in our nation's capital, around the country, or around the globe, we'll tell you what's going on. That's our job. Your job is to tell us what you think about it all. So give us a call at 866-55-PRESS. You know the gang here, Peter Ogburn and Elisa Murphy.
Good morning.
Producers on the show, that part of the team, with Alicia Cruz on the phones and Cyprian Bolding, our videographer, keeping us looking good on that video stream worldwide at youtube.com/TawkrTV. And joining us in studio, she covers healthcare issues for the National Journal, very involved in covering the trials and tribulations of Obamacare for the last 6 months. Clara Ritger. Hello, Clara. Nice to see you.
Hi, nice to see you.
Welcome to the program. It's a big day yesterday for President Obama.
It was.
A little victory lap.
Little victory lap yesterday in the Rose Garden.
Yeah. I kind of think he earned it, don't you think?
I think so as well. And I think the funny thing about it is we're celebrating 7.1 million, but we may very well see it go well above that as people who were in line on Monday and couldn't get enrolled continue to sign up.
Oh, yeah. They'll give them that opportunity. So we will be talking about that again, taking your calls at 866-55-PRESS. We spoke yesterday about the movie that made the big splash, if you will, this weekend, which was Noah, right? The story of which...
Did you go rush out and see it?
Are you kidding? I'm going to see that movie. But it's making a lot of news because the religious right is upset about it because they don't use the word God. They talk about the Creator, but not God. And so they say that's not holy enough or whatever. And a lot of... there's also criticism from the other side, I guess, because it sort of takes the Noah legend or parable seriously as if it actually historically happened. It finally was David Letterman's turn last night to give his take on Noah.
Folks, over the weekend, go see the big blockbuster movie Noah. You know what I'm talking about, Noah? It's a great story. You know, Noah's, they got a flood going on, and God contacts Noah and he said, you better do something about this, get everybody on board and take care of everybody. What a fantastic movie. And but, you know, what a cruise. It turns into a cruise.
The first cruise, think about it, the first cruise ship. Huh?
In the movie, and first of all, like, is it hard enough to round up all the animals and get them on a boat? I mean, right there. Telling you. But the hard part is keeping the hippos away from the buffet. That's the real. I mean.
Well, actually, that's the hard part on any cruise ship.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Even today, right?
Right.
So we'll start off with the big celebration at the White House yesterday and where we go from here with the Affordable Care Act with Clara Ritger from the National Journal. Keith Laing from The Hill joins us at the half hour. We'll get right into it. But first,
this is the Full Court Press.
Indeed, just a couple of other headlines making news. Welcome to Washington, D.C. Deshaun Jackson, former Philadelphia Eagle, made it official yesterday. He signed on with the Redskins for a 3-year deal. He tweeted, said it's going down, burgundy and gold, and showed a picture of the SportsCenter report showing that he had been signed for 3 years. Robert Griffin III, quarterback, said he's a very exciting player, determined to show he is the best and hungry to win. My kind of guy. So he will join first-year head coach Jay Gruden as the latest member of the
So we have a new coach, a new receiver. All we need is a new name.
A new name, yeah, and maybe a defense while we're at it. Speaking of football, former New York Giant Michael Strahan and current host of Live with Kelly and Michael, formerly Regis Philbin's position, he is in talks to join ABC's Good Morning America.
Whoa.
At least on a part-time basis. Good Morning America has seen several shakeups over the past couple months. Sam Champion went to the Weather Channel, and then Josh Elliott recently moving to NBC Sports. They're saying that Strahan had started having these conversations before Josh Elliott announced he was leaving, but we could be seeing him on there very soon. And proof...
They've done so well, too.
Yeah, they really have. Yeah. And proof that the internet continues to be a terrible place. The latest trend is the hashtag after sex selfie, and it's photos of couples who are taking selfies of themselves in the moments after they've had sex and putting them on Twitter and Instagram with the hashtag after sex. So
wait, is this April Fool's?
Why?
No, it's serious. People are actually doing
This is
it.
April Fool's.
No, it's the people are actually putting up like photos of them cuddling,
Smoking a cigarette.
The afterglow.
A lot of lonely guys putting pictures of themselves up there with the hashtag after sex on Twitter and on Instagram. So yeah, I would say don't do that.
Yeah, I would say
don't do
either.
that.
Yeah, particularly if your name's Anthony Weiner. Anyhow, more serious stuff indeed. So, Clara, I was there at the White House in the Rose Garden yesterday, and so we said the president was in a very buoyant mood and a very defiant mood, and the crowd was really, they were they were buzzing with excitement before the president came out. And here he is making the big announcement.
Despite several lost weeks out of the gate because of problems with the website, 7.1 million Americans have now signed up for private insurance plans through these marketplaces. 7.1.
I've been to a lot of events in the Rose Garden. There's often a crowd there. Sometimes it's just us reporters and the president as he's making a statement. But often they'll have, like, props, potted plants there, people who have the same role as potted plants, just to have like a little crowd for the president to respond to. I've never seen yesterday a crowd like that. I mean, when he said that, they just jumped up to their feet and they're cheering wildly. You've been covering this since certainly last October with the rollout. Do you ever think they'd get to 7 million people?
Oh, never. We were talking about it yesterday in the office. 3 weeks ago, no one thought it was going to get to 7 million. We barely thought it was going to get to 6 million, which was the CBO's revised projection for how many enrollees they'd see this enrollment period because of the issues with healthcare.gov.
Now, do we know how many are still in line basically to vote or to sign up?
No, we don't, and that may be a number that the administration is able to release, but the problem is some people went on healthcare.gov or some people called the call center and made an honest attempt to get in, but didn't necessarily leave a trace of being in line.
Oh.
Maybe their application didn't actually get started, or in the call center, it's really hard for them to tell. They didn't keep a log necessarily of everyone. So they may be able to release an estimate of how many people they know are in line, but there could be hundreds of thousands others who are still in line waiting to get coverage who they don't know about.
Now, the big question that some reporters were raising yesterday, it's a legitimate question, I think, but does not take away from the. You have to say the lead here, the headline is huge success.
Absolutely.
Wouldn't you agree?
Absolutely.
I mean, especially given the problems that they had.
Especially given the problems. I think what this shows is that despite the problems, there are millions of Americans out there who do want health coverage, because we saw so many people sign up, even in the face of, having to try multiple times, wait 45 minutes just to get the application through.
Right. Yeah. I mean, and buying insurance is not easy anyhow, right?
No, not at all.
Even when it's in person with someone who knows the plan and can walk you through the plan. Doing it online is tough. And people, as you said, they were willing to put in the time to wade through and to get there. And this because this is the first time in their lives that they've been able to afford it or to have access to health insurance. So without taking away from the success, there are still questions like, for example, what are the demographics? How many young people?
Exactly.
How many healthy people? We don't know that. And how many people have actually put their money on the line, right?
Exactly. So we don't know how many people have paid premiums. So while we could see the 7.1 million number go up because of the people who are in line, we could also see it very well go down because of the number of people who don't send in their premium payments. If you don't pay for your health insurance, you don't have it.
Yeah.
The other thing is that we don't know how successful necessarily it's going to be. For now, it's successful in terms of they got a lot of people who got signed up. They got a lot of people who are now getting covered. But we don't know if the insurance exchanges are going to have the right mix of healthy and sick people, the right mix of young and old, because they need that mix so that the insurance companies aren't facing an issue with their finances because they're not making enough money in premiums to cover the expenses of the people who are sick and going to the doctor a lot.
And the other question raised yesterday, particularly by critics of the Affordable Care Act, is, okay, we don't know 7.1 million, but how many of these people already had health insurance and they're just exchanging the health insurance they used to have for getting health insurance now under Obamacare and therefore getting a better deal, if you will.
And that's a very fair criticism as well. The administration, as far as we know, we've asked, as reporters, we've asked them, do you know how many people were previously uninsured? Right. And as far as we know, they're not even measuring that. That wasn't a question on the application as you went through. Did you or did you not have insurance previously? That's what the law should really be measured on. There's 48 million people in the United States who don't have health insurance. And now that number may well go down. And early polling has showed that the percentage of uninsured in the country probably has reduced by about 1%. But over time, if you really want to say that the Affordable Care Act was successful, you're going to have to see a huge dent in that 48 million number. And right now, we just don't know how many of the 7.1 million were previously uninsured.
When's the next time that people can sign up?
Next time you can sign up is starting November 15th, and your coverage, if you sign up in November, will begin January 1st, 2015.
Oh, so there's another sign-up period. Are they going to do that like every year? Is that
correct? Yeah, every year they're going to have an open enrollment
period. But in between now and
year.
November, you cannot sign up. Is that right?
Sort of. In between now and November, for the most part.
But why not, by the way?
Over. Yeah, I was going to say, what happens if you, for whatever reason, lose health insurance, like today?
I mean, like Walmart's open every day. Costco's open every day. Why is the damn website open every day?
So there's two things there. You can actually, if you are employed and you all of a sudden are unemployed and you lose your insurance, you'll qualify for a special enrollment period and you can get in. But if you just decide all of a sudden in May, April, June, that you want coverage, you can't just get in unless you qualify for one of those special enrollment periods. And the reason you can't do that is because the insurance companies need to be able to have a lockdown set enrollment period so that they can decide how much premiums are going to cost so that people can't just sign up when they get sick and put a big strain on the system. While it seems unfair that you can't just sign up whenever you want it, it's fairer to the large majority of the population because it means that it keeps their health costs under control.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So what happens now with the debate? The president yesterday, I thought that the money shot for the president yesterday was when he said, okay, now we know up on the Hill that 52 times they've tried to repeal this, but he said, let's just face the reality here. Here he is.
The debate over repealing this law is over. The Affordable Care Act is here to stay.
It's not going away, is it?
I don't think so. I really don't think the Affordable Care Act is going away. However, I also don't think that the Republican challenges to the law are going away. Today, we're going to see another vote in the House. Likely, we're going to see another vote in the House on the work requirement. There's a 30 hours a week makes you, under the law, full-time. And if you're considered a full-time employee, your employer has to provide you health insurance. So Republicans are against that, saying, 30 hours isn't full-time. It shouldn't be full-time. It should be 40. That would reduce the number of people who get employer-sponsored health coverage, and so what they're doing is trying to vote today to increase that. Well, that's probably not going to go anywhere, right? But I don't think we're going to stop seeing these challenges.
I don't think Republicans are going to change their tactic. I just wonder how successful that tactic is going to be. It's interesting. Mm-hmm. I know you were the National Journal. Our next guest is from the Hill. The headline in the Hill today is GOP gets O-Care angst. And the story is that there's some Republican senators who are saying, wait a minute, you're really basing our whole strategy for 2014 on repealing Obamacare? This ain't going to fly after yesterday's numbers. But that we ought to be talking about jobs and the economy this year rather than putting all of our eggs in the healthcare basket.
It is interesting to hear you say that, though, about how they're going after one particular part of it, right?
Yeah.
Like, after 52 times now, maybe they've learned that just a general repeal, it's not going to work. So now they're just going after individual pieces. So I mean,
what
can we call that progress for them?
Saying that insanity is doing the same thing.
The definition of insanity is doing the same thing
over and over again, expecting a different result. Right? Yeah. So they'll probably look at the Ryan budget yesterday. Repeal Obamacare. Price with nothing. So anyhow, lots of questions on the big success. Still lots of questions despite the big success of Obamacare yesterday. Clara Ritger is here from the National Journal. We'll be right back and welcome your calls, your comments, your suggestions, your experience. Love to know about it if you're one of the 7 million, maybe one of the ones who waited until the last minute to sign up. 866-55-PRESS is the toll-free number.
This is the Bill Press Show.
This is my computer.
This is your computer. Let's go on the internet.
Let's go. Click it.
Yes.
Okay.
I cursor in between the R and the E. Racing dot. I want you to just push the period.
She's gonna love me all over again.
That's it. Jamaica, here you go.
Here we go.
Good job.
Thank you. Thank you. And I did it by myself. Feel smarter.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. You know, but it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, you know, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello? That's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
So, same time next week?
Well, of course. Put away a few bucks, feel like $1 million. For free tips to help you save, go to Feed the Pig.
All right. I know this isn't any fun to talk about, but we should. Okay. So who's going to do what?
I'll pack the dead batteries.
Great.
I'll only put what I don't need into a duffel bag.
Perfect. That's totally unhelpful.
No problem.
Meanwhile, I will try to comfort everyone by speaking in a calm voice.
And I'll try to get the generator going without any gas.
Oh, let's not forget the cell phones, which probably won't work.
Right.
And who is going to handle supplies?
I can forget to do a list for us.
Thanks, pal.
Well, I think we couldn't be any less prepared. I'm proud of you guys.
Talk to your kids about who to call, where to meet, what to pack. Visit ready.gov/kids for tips and information.
Hey, thanks for stopping by. You know, I followed your character since the first episode. I'm a big fan. Big fan.
Thank you.
And listen, your storyline, it makes for incredible TV drama. Thing is, your drug use is very adult content. Too adult for the kids. So I'm gonna have to block you.
Oh, man.
Yeah. Well, have a good one.
You're a nice lady.
This is the Bill Press Show.
26 minutes after the hour now, we'll jump into the big hearing about General Motors yesterday, right after the half hour. Right now we're talking about the big celebration at the White House in the Rose Garden yesterday. President Obama and Clara Ritger is here from the National Journal covering these issues for the nationaljournal.com. The president really at least tried, I think, to turn the debate yesterday to saying we Democrats no longer have to talk about and explain and defend why we voted for or pushing Obamacare. Now it's up to you Republicans to explain why you want to deny people health care. Do you think these numbers are good enough to kind of pivot that debate?
I think so. I think it's going to be tough for the Republicans to come to and speak to 7.1 million Americans and try to tell them why they shouldn't have that health coverage or why that health coverage should be different. I think the clock is ticking. The more and more that people start to use this coverage, go to the doctor, get used to having health insurance for the first time, the harder it's going to be to take away that benefit. And that's something Republicans have kind of always known. It's just now we're kind of seeing this crisis within the Republican Party if they don't know necessarily whether they should keep pushing this repeal. You know, there's a new health plan that was dropped today from Governor Bobby Jindal.
Yeah.
So it's really tough. There's kind of a crack in the Republican Party about whether they're going to continue on this road or whether they're going to change courses on Obamacare.
Yeah, and that's why it's so good, right, for the administration and I think for the American people that there was such a surge and there was such a success in signups. I really do think it changes the whole debate about Obamacare from now on.
Yeah, I think it does as well.
So this just gives you more ammunition for all your reporting. Thank you, Clara. Thanks for coming in today.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Run these canyons for 6 million years. I have traveled from the Rocky Mountains to the deserts, through scorching heat and freezing cold, from the land of the dinosaurs to fields of food.
I lend my hand to 7 states, 2 countries, 9 national parks,
and 36 million people across an arid West.
I am not the strongest or the largest, but I am the hardest working.
People love me.
My playfulness.
My beauty.
My power.
My life. But I don't think I can offer any more.
I am tired.
I am tired.
Tapped.
And tied. Of the hundreds of major rivers in the world, I am one of the few who no longer kisses the sea.
Battles to harness my soul have been won and lost. Use me wisely, and I will sustain you.
Use me like you have, and I will break. My name
is
Red. The Grand River Red. The American Nile.
The Canyon Maker. I am the Colorado River.
And I am the most endangered river in America.
Connect with The Bill Press Show on Twitter. Follow us at BP Show and tweet using the hashtag WatchingBP. This is The Bill Press Show.
At 33 minutes after the hour, Wednesday morning, April 2nd. We continue here with the Bill Press Show, coming out to you on your local progressive talk radio station, and on our video stream worldwide at youtube.com/TawkrTV, TAWKRTV. Brought to you today by the American Federation of Teachers, the good men and women of the AFT, Teachers in America's Classrooms, making a difference every day. You bet, under President Randy Weingarten. Find out more about their good work at aft.org. A very dramatic and tough hearing yesterday in the House of Representatives on the incidents of General Motors and their failure to start a recall with some troublesome vehicles years before they did indeed do so. The new CEO of GM, Mary Barra, was on the stand. Keith Laing, covering that hearing for The Hill, has been covering this issue for The Hill, joins us in studio this morning. Hi, Keith. Good to see you.
Thanks for having me.
She was given a rough time yesterday by Republicans and Democrats, right?
Yeah, I mean, there was an acknowledgement that she's very new to this job.
And she wasn't the one who responsible for it.
Yeah, she said yesterday she was a second-generation GM employee, so it's not that she wasn't with the company, but she just became CEO in January. Her selection was heralded because she was the first woman who was picked to run an American car company. So there was a lot of mention of that, but then people just got right into some very hard questioning about dates and times. A lot of these vehicles that are recalled are over a decade old.
So let's go back to exactly what the problem was. What brand of GM car were we talking about, and what was the problem with them?
It's several brands, many of which they don't make anymore, like Saturn Ion was one. There was a lot of discussion yesterday about Chevy Cobalts. Mm-hmm. And that was kind of one of her explanations, was that this is complicated because it involved cars that we don't make anymore. But the issue was the ignition switch with these vehicles. There were problems with keys that were too heavy. The National Highway and Traffic Safety Administration issued a recall in February of this year on these vehicles. They were saying that in the meantime they recommended that people use just their keys on a key ring by itself, because if you had anything dangling, it could impact the ignition switch and cause the car to shut off or the airbag to be disabled. These switches were linked to 13 deaths, and several of the families were at the hearing yesterday. They weren't allowed to testify, but they held a press conference, and they basically accused GM of being indifferent to the safety of their customers.
When did GM first know about this problem?
That's in dispute. There were several lawmakers that said that they've known about this going back as far as 2004. The recall was issued this February, and Barra's defense is
not until 2014.
2014, the recall was issued.
10 years later.
Yeah, and Barra's defense is, as soon as she became aware of the problem, she got it out there. But there was not a lot of patience for that argument on the Hill yesterday.
So during this 10-year period, you know, that's what I've seen reported too, 2004, that they knew about it, they were warned about it, they could have taken some action, corrective action, and did not. Is there evidence of that?
There is. That's what the focus of these hearings are now, because there's also the Highway and Traffic Safety Administration is coming under some fire. Because
I was going to ask you that next, whether they knew about it. Yeah.
Yeah, they're saying that they didn't have complete information from GM. GM is saying that they weren't compelled to issue the recalls, and they weren't fully aware of the link between the ignition and the earlier complaints until recently.
Again, just for the record, what was Mary Barra's job at GM before? Was she involved in this engineering division that would have made a decision about whether or not to act sooner on this ignition switch?
She was a member of the board of directors at GM most recently, but I can't say conclusively that she would have been involved in this decision.
I mean, you have to assume that not everybody in the GM operation knew what was going on, but some people did.
She said yesterday that there appears to be some information that one part of the company had that didn't get to another part of the company, and that this was kind of the result of a communications lapse.
So what's GM doing about this now?
Well, they've issued the recall, and it covers 1.6 million vehicles, mostly models from 2004 to 2010. And yesterday, well, 2 days before the hearing, they announced another 1.3 million vehicles were being recalled for power steering issues. So they're saying that drivers can go into their dealerships, get their parts replaced. The new parts are up to specs. That was one of the criticisms of GM yesterday, was that the newer cars have been made with better ignition switches, but they didn't issue the recall for the older cars.
And aren't they conducting their own internal investigation?
Yeah, they are. That's part of what they've hired. Ken Feinberg, who's a Washington attorney who specializes in responses to crises for corporations and payouts to victims. He most famously worked for managed the compensation funds for the BP oil spill and the Virginia Tech shootings. They said they're launching their own investigation, and they are going to let the facts be what the facts are. She said she's not trying to put a positive spin on it yesterday.
This is not a Chris Christie kind of investigation. That's what you do, right?
Yeah.
You hire your own people and tell them what to say, and then they come out with a report. I hope GM does a little more, takes a little more honest look at itself than Chris Christie did. But the idea, you alluded to this. When I hear the name Ken Feinberg, I think if he was the one who decided which families, 9/11 families, got how much money, right?
Yeah.
He did the same thing for the BP oil spill. I know, right? So does that mean that GM is basically accepting the fact that they're going to have to pay compensation to the families of these 13 victims and others?
That's the assumption. But yesterday during the hearing, Mary Barra purposely tried not to say that. I guess she didn't want to prejudice the ongoing investigation, but the widespread assumption is that you don't hire Ken Feinberg if you don't know that you're going to be doing some payouts. But there have been 13 deaths reported so far, going back as far as 2005. I think the first Cobalt accident yesterday, one of the mother of a teenager who was killed in a Cobalt accident in 2005 was at the press conference yesterday. So it's likely that there will be litigation.
On the investigation, here is Mary Barra yesterday in front of the which House committee was this?
It was the Energy and Commerce Committee.
Energy and Commerce, right.
As soon as I have the information, that's why we've launched an internal investigation. Remember, we are looking at something that happened over more than a decade, and it's a very complex situation. We need to make sure we have the facts, and we won't sacrifice accuracy for speed.
How'd the committee receive that?
I think in general, her promises to launch this investigation and conduct a thorough review were received well. But where she kind of ran into some trouble was when she was pressed on specific dates and times. What did you know in 2006? Why was this decision made in 2007? And she said repeatedly, I want to know the answer to that as much as you do, but we can't do that until we conduct this investigation. At one point, a member of the panel told her that she was the company now. She couldn't say that she wasn't there before. She's the face of the company now.
And one of the members of that committee is Congressman Henry Waxman, who's stepping down this year, former chair of the House Oversight Committee. The one who, when he was head of the House Oversight Committee, he was the new sheriff in town, on the Hill. Very, very tough, particularly in the tobacco companies. He went after GM yesterday, saying, "You knew, and you're responsible." Here he is.
GM has known for years about this safety defect and has failed to take appropriate action to fix the problem.
So the House, I think Henry's right on that. The House, they hold this hearing, they beat up on Mary Barra, and then what happens? I mean, is Congress going to do anything here? Well, first of all, there's another hearing today, correct?
Yeah, there's a hearing in the Senate today on the Senate's Commerce Committee focusing on the same subject. Mary Barra will testify again and likely receive the same type of response.
Yeah, except maybe worse, right? Because she's been softened up now, and the senators know the tough questions from the House and saw how it was received. But from either of these two committee hearings, is anything going to happen other than the fact that the CEO comes in and gets pummeled by members of Congress and they get some good TV time, and then it goes back to whatever GM decides to do? Or will there be legislation? I mean, I'm just wondering where this is all leading.
There's talk of legislation to implement more stringent timelines for reporting incidents with cars. That's one of the things that people are focusing on in this hearing is the reporting process, because GM is supposed to report that this problem has been identified to the National Highway Traffic Safety Agency, and they're supposed to work together on a recall. There was a 2000 bill about that, about the timeliness of recall reporting, and there's some look at, it's called the TRID Act, and there's some talk about looking at whether that can be tweaked or we need a new bill to prevent this type of thing from happening. There was bipartisan anger at the length of time that this went on before these recalls were issued.
Could GM be fined for not reporting this? If they knew as early, if it's shown that they knew as early as 2004, is there any way that they could be, forced to pay some huge fine or even be shut down?
I think any penalties would probably be processed through the Department of Justice. I'm not sure that the Highway and Traffic Safety Agency would do that.
I don't even know whether they have the legal authority to do that. That's what I was asking.
Yeah, this isn't the first time a major automaker has had recalls, but this is
hardly right.
This is a rare instance where you're dealing with cars that have been on the road 10 years.
Yeah, absolutely. You've seen a lot about this GM, this case of GM now. Now it's up in front of the Congress, getting a lot more publicity. What do you think about it? What should happen to GM? 866-55-PRESS. And is Mary Barra really the one who is responsible for what happened? Keith Laing is with us from The Hill, thehill.com. Your calls, your questions, our conversation continues when we come back, and your calls welcome at 866-55-PRESS.
This is the Bill Press Show.
A single ember that escapes from a wildfire can travel more than a mile. That single ember can ignite and destroy your home or even your community. You can't control where that ember will land, only what happens when it does. Get Fire Adapted now at fireadapted.org.
Columbine, Virginia Tech.
Tucson.
Aurora.
Fort Hood. Oak Creek.
Newtown.
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 How many more?
How many more? How many more colleges? How many more classrooms?
How many more movie theaters?
How many more houses of faith?
How many more shopping malls?
How many more street corners?
How many more?
How many more?
Enough. Enough. Enough.
Enough.
Demand a plan.
Right now. As a mom.
As a dad. As a friend. As a husband.
As a wife.
As an American.
As an American.
As an American.
As a human being.
for the children of Sandy Hook.
Demand a plan. No more lists of names. It's not too soon.
It's too late.
Now is the time.
Before we all know someone who loved someone on that list.
No more lists.
No more.
Who they might have been. No more.
If we had just done something yesterday. It's time.
We can do better than this.
We can do better than this.
It's time.
It's time.
It's time for our leaders to act.
Demand a plan. Right now.
Right now.
You! Demand it!
Enough.
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 None of us would want to be told we can't marry the person we love. As Americans, we believe in freedom. That's what I fought for as a Marine, and that's what we believe in as Republicans. Freedom means freedom for everyone. I didn't used to understand the importance of same-sex marriage, but after learning my brother was gay, I wanted the same rights for him. He was the best man at my wedding, and I want to be the best man at his. It's only fair that Calvin should have the freedom to marry the person he loves, too.
It's time for marriage.
Connect with The Bill Press Show on Twitter. Follow us at BP Show and tweet using the hashtag WatchingBP. This is The Bill Press Show.
We're talking about the big flap about General Motors with CEO Mary Barra scheduled to testify today before the Senate Commerce Committee, as she did yesterday before the House Energy and Commerce Committee. Keith Laing is covering this issue for The Hill, joining us in studio. Keith, in your story this morning, you quote the mother of one of the victims who was killed, a young girl who was killed back in 2005. The mother says, GM executives made a decision that fighting the problem was cheaper and easier than fixing the problem. How much would it have cost to fix the problem?
There are reports out that this fix could have been accomplished for less than $1 a car. I think they said in the hearing yesterday, 21 cents.
Whoa.
Jeez.
Yeah.
That really is sick.
That really puts it in perspective. So if they had put out a recall back in... So, I mean, why? If you know this... What I don't understand, right? You know there's a problem with your vehicles. You know there have been accidents. People have been hurt, and maybe by that time even people killed. And somebody makes a decision, no, we're not going to recall these vehicles or issue a recall. If it's going to cost a lot of money to do that, millions and millions of dollars, maybe you could see somebody saying, well, there are not that many cars, so let's just save the money. But you're talking, what, 21 cents?
Well, Mary Barra said yesterday when she was asked, how do you calculate the cost versus safety? She said, we don't. We err on the side of safety, but these reports out here about the cost of this switch seem to belie that fact.
Well, or what would be the other reason not to have this recall at the time? Bad publicity? They just think it looks bad. As you say, cars are recalled all the time.
Yeah, I think there's usually there's a critical mass that has to be reached with a certain problem because my car can have a defect and your car can have a defect and they can be similar, but the causes could be. The symptoms could be similar, but the causes could be different. So, I think they might argue that they hadn't proven this link fully before they issued the recall.
Do you know when the public there were first reports about this problem with the ignition with General Motors?
I don't know when the I know now that the families are saying that these complaints go back as far as 2004, but I don't think this was an issue that got widespread attention until very recently, until the recall was issued, actually. The first stories I saw in the national press or around February of this year.
Well, because I'd be interested to know, and interested if your reporting has been able to uncover, when did the National Highway and Safety Transportation Board find out about this problem? And they didn't do anything about it either, correct?
Yeah, the acting administrator of the Highway and Traffic Safety Administration was testifying too. He didn't get as much attention as Barrett did, but he faced lawmakers for about an hour and a half yesterday, and he had to answer some of those same questions because their job is to monitor the auto companies and make sure that proper notices are going out about mechanical issues.
But if these families knew that other people, they could see a link, these kinds of accidents caused by the same kind of problem. And if they were complaining to General Motors, they certainly must have complained to maybe, I don't know, members of Congress or to the whatever hell it is. What is it? NHSTB at the same time, right?
Lots of people were getting tongue-tied yesterday in the hearing on that. It's easy to imagine that. I think one of the criticisms of GM is there have been reports that dealers were recommending, when people went in and complained about the problems with their cars, dealers were recommending the lighter key change that ended up being part of the recall, which leads people to believe that GM was aware of this problem well before the recall was issued.
Boy, I think the more you know about this.
Yeah.
The more you know.
It's not good.
No. And we already know enough, I think, even without the GM investigation being included, that there's a lot of accountability missing on the part of General Motors, and I'd have to say on the Federal Highway Transportation Safety Agency as well. They didn't do their job, and look at the result of it. Well, Keith, you've got a lot of work ahead of you today with this hearing, but you've done a great job staying on top of this story, and thanks for coming in this morning, bringing us up to date.
Thanks for having me.
All right, see you again. It's thehill.com, and I'll be back with today's parting shot about the huge success of Obamacare.
This is the Bill Press Show.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. But it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello, that's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
At Earth Justice, we defend the environment in the courtroom. Join our fight. When you take a seat, you take a stand. Earth Justice, because the Earth needs a good lawyer.
If you drive buzzed, it could cost you around $10,000. You'll face major legal fees, major fines, and steep insurance penalties. You could lose everything. Nothing kills a buzz like getting pulled over for buzz driving, because buzz driving is drunk driving.
When some people struggle with their mortgage payments, they become frozen, petrified. Not knowing what to do, they do nothing. But the people who take action are far more likely to get the most positive outcome. Making home affordable is a free government program. Call now to talk one-on-one with a housing expert about the options that are right for you. Real help, real answers, right now.
So this is my computer.
This is your computer. Let's go on the internet.
Let's go. Click it.
Yes.
Okay.
I cursor in between the R and the E. Pressing down, I want you to just push the area.
She's gonna love me all over again.
That's it. Jamaica, here you go.
Here we go.
Good job.
Thank you. Thank you. And I did it by myself. Feel smarter.
The Parting Shot with Bill Press. This is The Bill Press Show.
Well, I was there in the East Room of the White House on March 23rd, 2010, when President Obama signed the Affordable Care Act into law, and I was there in the Rose Garden yesterday, April 1, 2014, when President Obama announced that 7.1 million people had signed up so far. What a celebration it was. The Secretary of HHS, Kathleen Sebelius, Chief of Staff, Dennis McDonough, Valerie Jarrett, the President's top advisor, were in the front row. So were Nancy Pelosi, Dick Durbin, Rosa DeLauro, Donna Edwards, Charlie Rangel, over 200 staffers, White House staffers, and they leapt to their feet and cheered when the President gave that 7.1 million figure. And later, the walls of the White House literally rang with cheers when he defiantly declared the debate over repealing this law is over. The Affordable Care Act is here to stay. And he is right, and it's time the Republicans recognize that. In the words of Vice President Joe Biden, standing right alongside of the President, this is indeed a BFD. Have a great day, folks. See you back here again tomorrow morning.
This is The Bill Press Show.